right, baseball brings us to Cleveland and Jacobs Field. 2 weeks from now, the All-Stars will all convene here, but tonight it is the Cincinnati Reds against the Cleveland Indians. Welcome, everyone, alongside Jim Rooker. I am Karl Ravech. The last day and night of interleague play, take one. A mixed review so far.
Well, some don't like it, some do, but I think the majority of the people are starting to lean toward the liking side of interleague play. One thing to keep in mind, tighten it up, refine it a little bit, and I think what I'm getting at, Karl, is when a National League team comes to Cleveland, for example, the pitchers don't get to hit. And when you bring the other teams into your city, you want to see their style of play. So if they do a little bit reversal in that regard, let the pitchers hit here, let the DHs bat in the National League. The big thing is the fans like it, they're number one, and things are looking pretty good right now.
Well, in either park, so far the American League has been the dominant league, winning 42 of the 76 games. The numbers offensively are up as well.
If you can't hit in the American League, find another league, because you're going to find a lot of guys that swing the bat. The power number is probably stronger in the American League, therefore the higher number of runs being scored.
One problem for the Reds this season has been swinging the bat, also injuries, and Barry Larkin goes down Monday night.
Boy, I'll tell you, it's been a tough year for Ray Knight. Bad start. Things just seem to be getting tougher, but Ray's a tough guy, and he's learning how to play doctor as well as manage.
Well, he had to play it again. We were supposed to see Pete Shurik on the mound, a bad left elbow instead. Mike Remliger goes. Back with the first pitch from Jacobs Field right after this. Jacobs Field. During the day today, we had some clouds, some mist. The temperature didn't get out of the 60s, but now, what they have come to expect in Cleveland on nights of baseball games, just a beautiful night for baseball, and they will have another packed house here at Jacobs Field, as they have, not only because it's interleague week, but because they have had it all season. Welcome, everybody, again to Jacobs Field, along with Jim Rooker. I am Karl Ravech, and we are set for the Reds and Indians, Game 3 of this interleague series, which is now tied 1 game apiece. It has been an interesting series. The Reds jumped out, won the first game. Back came the Indians. And when you look just on paper at the two lineups, you would think this would be a series dominated by Cleveland.
Well, especially when you're in their ballpark and the DH is in effect. And you just get the feeling, Karl, that there is a distinct advantage. The ballpark, I mean, there's so many things, one on top of another. And Cleveland leading their division, the Reds are struggling. It's one team going in one direction, the other going the opposite.
Absolutely. I mentioned the lineup, too. When you look at the Cincinnati Reds and what Ray Knight has had to deal with, Deion Sanders will lead things off. He'll be in center field. He is the only guy in the same position tonight that was in the same position when he had his opening day lineup announced. There were other players, Willie Green, for instance, in right field. When he started the season opening day, he was at third base, and that's just the type of season it has been for Ray and the Reds.
Well, when you have to juggle people around like that, you hurt yourself in more than one spot. Willie Green, from an infielder to an outfielder, he made an error already in the series, so things like that can add up. So you have to try and cover your bases if you can, so to speak, and it's been a tough job for the Reds to do that.
Hal Morris also, I should say, was there on opening day at first base, and he is back there again. There is an interesting situation developing at second base for this team. We'll discuss that a little bit later. As for the pitcher tonight, well, we thought we would see Bartolo Colon. Mike Hargrove decided Bartolo Colon would be better served down at AAA, so it's Chad O.J. on 3 days rest.
Well, they had a rain out in St. Louis, and somebody had to go into the mix, so Mike feels that here's a fellow with a little more experience. O.J.'s been knocked around lately. He's 0-3 so far in June, and the reason being is he's been getting the ball up too much. His best pitch is the changeup. So when you get that pitch up, obviously hitters set on it, you're going to get into trouble. So tonight, real easy. Keep it down, stay ahead of the hitters. Sounds easy sometimes, however, sometimes it's not.
Ray Knight is a manager. He is not a doctor, but he plays one on this team. This, boy, have they been hurt, and you look at the list of names that have been on the injured list. You start with Barry Larkin, who went down on Monday night. It's a veritable all-star team as far as Reds go.
Yes, and you can't make those gaps up. It's tough to do. People have to step in, but they just can't make up the numbers.
So Chad O.J. starts it off, and he will be facing Deion Sanders. When you talk about offensive threats for the Reds, he is basically it when he gets on. This is the best running team in baseball with regards to stolen bases, and he's the biggest threat of all. First pitch, swinging, off speed, and O.J. is a guy who needs to set things up really with his fastball, but he changes things up early.
Well, as I said, his changeup is his #1 pitch, so why not start the game with your best? It's unusual that you would do it on a changeup, but percentages dictate that when you stick with your number one.
Dion swings away, fouls it back, and immediately he's in a hole, 0-2. Deion Sanders so far this season, 30 stolen bases. The Reds is a team with 88, and that is good for first in the major leagues. What they have done this season quite a bit is have Dion lay a ball down. Obviously, 0-2, we won't see that. A little bit outside. Behind the plate tonight, calling balls to strike, Eric Cooper. The 1-2 to Dion. And he is gone. Off-speed breaking ball inside.
Well, the secret to pitching is getting the hitter off balance. And don't you think that O.J. did a good job on Deion Sanders? Had him well out in front of everything. And here's the breaking pitch. Sanders swings over the top. Another thing to watch about O.J., he has just a little bit of a delay in his delivery. And again, not just the pitch, but the delivery itself offsets the hitter just enough to be effective.
So, the major offensive threat in Ray Knight's lineup finds himself back on the bench after just 4 pitches. And immediately, Chad O.J. gets ahead in the count. Oral Hershiser told me before the game, on 3 days rest, there are guys who may be more effective on 3 days rest as opposed to getting the 4 days off. He thinks Chad O.J. may be one of them.
Well, and part of the reason is O.J. is not a overpowering pitcher, so you don't lose an awful lot. He's a control pitcher, even though the control has not been good in June. You get into a groove, and sometimes, Carl, it's better for pitchers to come back quicker.
Immediately down, 0-2. Lenny Harrison again, and similar, the way that he worked Deion Sanders, he is working Lenny Harris.
Well, you look back years ago when Cleveland had a guy named Johnny Sane here. His belief was make the pitch do something every time you throw it. In other words, a lot of movement, and that's what you see from O.J.
The 1-2, breaking ball to center field. Grissom is there, and there are 2 away. As for the guys playing behind Chad O.J., has been a relatively reliable group. Grissom in center field. Rid of that, Hubbard getting the start in left field. Dave Justice again out, hyperextended elbow. They're going to wait a couple of days, see if he can work through that before they make a decision about the 15-day DL. Williams, Vizquel, Franco, and Tomei the infield. Alomar having a tremendous season at the plate, behind the plate. And Enner Ramirez with a great arm in right field. Willie Green, the number 3 hitter, playing right field. And for the first time this evening, behind in the count is O.J. Breaking ball, missed. It is 2-0. The All-Star game comes here in a couple of weeks. There's a chance to see 3 Indians on it. The catcher being one of them, maybe Jim Tomei. Dave Justice for sure. On the inside corner from O.J., and it's 1-2. And he cannot afford to get behind hitters, although it's interesting with this lineup, I think you may be more willing to experiment. This one down the line, and it will go foul, so it's 2-2. You may be more willing to experiment a little bit with your pitches because there isn't that threat that, say, the Indians have on their offensive side.
Well, as you mentioned earlier, Deion Sanders is the only guy, Karl, that's having any kind of a real year because of injuries. I'm talking day-to-day. Larkin's done his job. He's even hit number 4. They don't have, the Reds don't have a true number 4 hitter. The power just isn't there. So with the advantage, I think, of the American League and the Indians, especially with the way they hit, you can give up early runs and not worry an awful lot.
Absolutely. Count full now, 3-2. O.J. thought he had strike 3 on the inside corner, didn't get the call.
By the way, if you look at O.J.'s left knee, you see the brace. And as you found out, Karl, before the ball game, it's something that he's had a brace before, but this one is improved.
This is the new and improved brace. He wore it in his last start, and he felt better. To right field. Back goes Ramirez. Forget about it. Who says they don't have any offensive power? Willie Green hits home run number 9, On a 3-2 pitch from Chad O.J., Ramirez took 2 steps back and said, I can't get there. 1-0 Reds.
Well, as we mentioned, off balance, and this looks like the changeup, and you see that Green was out on his front foot, but able to get that bat head out in front. The ball carries very well in this ballpark.
Willie Green not doing bad against American League hitters either. American League pitchers, I should say. 3 for 6 now. The number 4 hitter, and a man who has his name in the Reds history books as being the first ever DH, Eddie Taubensee. 1 ball, 1 strike as he chases some high stuff. Outfield shaded to right. Taubensee, known as a pull hitter, also a contact hitter, and certainly in this lineup, a power hitter. And he goes down the line. Ramirez over, can't get it. It goes off the wall. Taubensee to second. Ramirez has an arm, and he throws just to the left side of second base. And Taubensee slides in safely at second. And just like that, Chad O.J., who had succeeded in getting the first 2 out, has failed getting the last 2.
Well, O.J. is going to have to move the ball around a little bit more. He'll get a visit right now from the pitching coach, but as you see, that pitch not quite in far enough as Taubensee is able to get the hands in and almost rifle this one out of the ballpark. Ray Knight, for the most part, has gone percentage, stacking his lineup predominantly with left-handed hitters, hoping that they will be patient enough to wait on O.J., not get over anxious, and after 2 quick outs, a run and a double. So Mark Wiley with a quick trip to the mound. Listen, guy, it looked like an easy inning, and sometimes, Karl, you try to get that 3rd out too fast, and you rush yourself. So I'm sure that you just go out, talk to Chad O.J. and say, look, settle down, get us out of this inning, and then go from there.
Terry Pendleton, veteran, dangerous, and that may be another thing they discuss, is the fact that if you're going to put the ball over the middle of a plate, for this lineup, this is one of the guys who can do some damage. Taubensee off second, 2 down, Reds up 1-0 thanks to a Willie Green home run. Low and inside, and immediately he's behind 1-0. So for O.J., again, threw 83 pitches in his last start 3 games ago. And the fact that he's not, as you pointed out, a power pitcher, they're not too concerned about that. Though I'm sure Mark Wiley and Mike Hargrove have some concerns now. Gets the call on the corner. It's 1-1.
When you have that bad outing and actually a bad stretch, as I said earlier, it helps a pitcher sometimes to get out there quicker than his normal turn. You can't wait to go out there and right yourself, prove something to yourself and maybe other people that you're a better pitcher than what you've been showing recently.
June has not been a good month for Chad O.J. In 3 starts, his ERA is over 10.5, and it took it from 4.75 up to 5.67, which is not where he wants to be and not where Mike Hargrove wants his staff to be. Both of these staffs, ERAs, starters, not the greatest. He gets him there in a nasty breaking ball on the inside, gives us 2-2. We understand we're having some audio problems. We apologize for those. Hope to get those cleared up as soon as possible. The beauty of television is sometimes pictures are better than the words. Just a bit low, and it goes full on Pendleton.
Well, now the guessing begins. Willie Green hit the home run on the 3-2 pitch. A little bit of a guessing game now with Terry Pendleton. What to look for.
Breaking ball, this to right center. This one will stay in the yard. Ramirez calls off Grissom. Side retired. Damage done, though. The Reds push one across as O.J. gets his first 2, but Willie Green goes yard. Back to the Tribes. Reds on top of the Indians here on ESPN. Wednesday Night Baseball. 1-0 the score. 2 hits. One of them a home run off the bat of Willie Green, his 9th. That is the difference as the Indians come to the plate for the first time. 1 run has been the Number of runs the losing team has put on the board in the first two games. 4-1, Reds in game one of this series. 5-1, Indians in game two. The lineup behind Mike Gremlinger, who is making his first start of the season. He will be facing Marquis Grissom, the center fielder, leading off the DH. Professional hitter, Kevin Seitzer. Jim Tomei bats third. Matt Williams has been in a miserable slump. 1 for his last 27 at-bats. He has got a problem with his middle finger, and they claim that he has been sort of bailing out on some of his attempts at swings, and that's caused even more pain when he does make contact. Sandy Alomar has been the offensive hero so far this season. Last night, Omar Vizquel was the offensive hero as he had 5 RBIs. Tough assignment for Mike Gremlinger.
It really is. He's made 35 appearances this year, all out of the bullpen, and you look at the number of innings, only 28 in the third inning. So you're looking at a one-batter, two-batter situation, a very big challenge because he's going to have to stretch it out. And I know it's a slang, but he's got the message. It's go as long as you can or go as hard as you can as long as you can.
Yeah, we will see the bullpen guaranteed tonight for the Reds. Gremlinger got his first win back on June 10th, and he threw 2 pitches.
I'll tell you something I don't like to see, and this does surprise me somewhat. You have your starting pitcher out there pitching from the stretch to the first batter. That, to me, I just don't like the sign. Of course, I'm not going to tell anybody what to do, but I've always wondered about that, why they do that. And I know as a relief pitcher, you get a comfortable zone. But this guy was a starting pitcher before. He's starting tonight. He's not coming out of the bullpen.
He did make 13 starts last year for Class A Indianapolis, made 4 starts for the Reds. Grissom pops it up. Will it stay in? It's drifting and about 14 rows up. Class AAA Indianapolis, 13 starts last year and 4 with Cincinnati. He pitches from the stretch. You say you don't like that. Is that because he's used to coming in with men on base?
Well, as a reliever, yes, but it's the mentality and your approach to the ball game, which I don't understand. But of course, hey, I'm not the pitching coach, but if I'm a starting pitcher, I want that batter to think I'm in charge. Sometimes you have to be a good actor out there. So I just, you know, can't quite figure out why a starting pitcher would go from the stretch.
Behind in the count, 3-1 now. And Grissom calls time. Marquis Grissom had been batting 9th. They flip-flopped him with Omar Vizquel. When he was batting 9th, he had more success, so they moved him to the top of the order. Last night, Vizquel hitting 9th, and he had great success. Outside, and the leadoff man is now aboard in Marquis Grissom. Let's take a look at what is behind Mike Gremlinger, and an interesting situation developing at second base. Jeff Branson goes tonight. Brett Boone is out. And what does that mean?
Well, word around is that Brett Boone is going to go down to the minor leagues, and I think it's a great story in that he probably didn't have to go, but he knows it's for the best for himself and for the ball club. So I think they're going to make it official after the ball game. And in this day and age, the money's still going to be there, Carl. He signed a 3-year deal. He'll get the cash, and I think what he's doing, it shows what kind of a guy Boone is.
He has had some miserable times at the plate. His fielding has suffered as a result of that a little bit. Kevin Seitzer up, then immediately down 0-1. Interesting. And, Jim, you think in the National League now, Ray Knight and his boys would be used to seeing perhaps a sacrifice. Move a runner over, get 1 run. Now in an American League park against an American League team, he didn't square to bunt on the first pitch. He does there. Maybe Mike Hargrove is sensing this is a National League game.
No, sometimes you'll square just to take a look at the pitch. Cleveland is, at this early in the ball game, you really don't look for that to happen. They're going to go at you. Now, if it gets later in the ball game, the thinking may change a little bit.
1-1 on Seitzer, who brings a .226 average to the plate. 1 home run, 7 RBIs. The knock on Marquis Grissom when he was in Atlanta was that he was not your prototypical leadoff hitter. They had one here in Kenny Lofton.
You go back a few years ago, Grissom ran an awful lot in Montreal. That's what Atlanta thought they were going to get in Grissom, but he had some problems with his legs.
He goes. Seitzer into right. This one may drop. They may have a chance to double it off at first. Safe at first as he gets back just in time. And he had to use his speed there because he was 3/4 of the way to second base, came within about a foot of touching it. Willie Green made a nice throw.
baseball from the Indians. They are not a running and running type ball club. But if you have a guy like Grissom that can use his speed, why not? They just haven't done an awful lot of it. I think that's the one thing that sets the difference now between the Indians and in the past. Here's that play again, very close at first base. There's no question Kenny Lofton is the ideal leadoff man. Get on base and steal a lot of bases.
Ed Hickok, the first base umpire, there to make the call. Tomei looks at a fastball over the inside corner, and he's in a hole 0-1. Some concern that perhaps moving Jim Tomei from third to first with the acquisition of Matt Williams would affect him at the plate. It has not done that. 284, 18 home runs, and 50 runs batted in so far for the lefty. And perhaps the favorite of the Indian players amongst the crowd here.
And the way things are going right now, it affected Matt Williams with the bat coming more over to the American League. He hasn't adjusted quite well yet.
Tomei is finding, with Williams struggling, he's getting walked quite a bit. In this series, he's 1 for 7, and he's walked a couple times. Grissom will run. He's not Deion Sanders, but he is 11 for 16 as far as steals and attempts go.
Pretty good lead at first base. Remlinger, a left-hander. You have to guess with him.
Tomei fouls one back, and that one is out of play.
And you can see Remlinger trying to help his catcher out. It's not a high leg kick. Joe Oliver still throws pretty well. You give him a chance, he'll do the job. So Remlinger it's not a slide step, but it's an abbreviated delivery to the plate. Try to unload the ball as quickly as possible.
I mentioned the walks. The fact is, Jim Tomei is currently the leader in American League walks. 59 of them. And obviously, if Matty Williams batting behind him was hitting a little more effectively, that would change. Grissom is going. The throw down, and he tagged him on the shoulder before the foot got in. Joe Oliver nailed him. Side retired. Indians do not push any across. They're in a 1-0 hole. Grissom will talk it over with a second base up. John Hirschbeck will return after this. It's become just a beautiful night for baseball here at Jacobs Field. The Reds are on top of the Indians, 1-0. Marquis Grissom making the final out on an attempted steal of second. Tomei will lead off next inning for the Indians. Leading off this inning for the Reds, Hal Morris. Pinch hit last night, went 0 for 1, ending a 3-game hitting streak. Morris at first, Deion Sanders in center, the only two guys in the same positions they were at on opening day for Ray Knight. O.J. a little high, a little outside, and again, I think one of the things we maybe should keep an eye on with O.J. is whether or not he gets ahead in the count. It seemed to work for the first two batters he faced, and then he started to get a little wild. 2-0. And you can see Alomar just sort of signaling him to settle down a little bit.
Some pitchers that are more of the power type, they can make a mistake. They can pitch behind. O.J. is not that type.
Inside, missing, 3-0. We talked about all the injured players that Ray Knight has had to deal with. Hal Morris has been another one. In fact, when you're not 100%, when you're not 90%, when you're not 80%, you still have to play for the Reds. He's got a tight right hamstring, and he's in the lineup.
And nobody feels sorry for you, believe me. Everybody has their turn, and it just seems to be, for this year, it's the Reds.
Ball 4. So Morris goes to first. And once again, having men on, not what Mike Hargrove or Mark Wiley wanted on 3 days rest out of their pitcher. Have to get ahead in the count.
Well, here you have your prototypical double play man in Joe Oliver. So for Chad O.J., keep the ball down. And the thing about this lineup, Carl, you look at some of these names here, they are great mistake-type hitters. Oliver's one of them.
There's a strike, 0-1.
And it amazes me that a fellow like Oliver will let that pitch go.
He does have the arm, and this was a close play. It almost appeared as if Grisham got the left foot in before the tag, but from that angle, very tough to tell where the glove hit him.
Plus, when you see the runner go beyond the base like that and reach back, he's assuming or got the feeling that the infielder never put the tag on the base runner, but the umpire was blocked out.
Morris on the move, and that is off the glove of O.J. Vizquel was going over to cover. Therefore, the hole was vacated. The ball drops, and they have first and second. And it has been an interesting week for Joe Oliver. He played last night, went 0 for 3. The night before, he was with his wife at the hospital as they gave birth to a son.
Well, this is a reaction play for a pitcher. If O.J. lets that ball go, it's an automatic double play, and as automatic as you can get. But the competitor inside of you just makes you react to the ball. You try to make the play, and in fact, you really shouldn't.
It is ruled a single.
Especially when you have a gold glove shortstop like Omar Vizquel behind you.
A gold glove and a gold hand, too. With all the barehanded plays we've seen him make, that's golden. Laid down, foul. Tomei fields it. They'll have to go back to first and second.
Well, that pretty much tells you how bad Ray Knight wants runs. You have Jeff Branson batting, a left-hander, against a right-handed pitcher. Branson is struggling, batting 174, but every once in a while, again, as I mentioned, there are some good mistake hitters on this ball club. Branson is another one. Pendleton, Hal Morris, Eddie Taubensee. So Ray Knight thinking, listen, if we can get a lead on these guys, any kind of a big lead, we'll take it, because actually Cleveland averages about 2 runs a game more than Cincinnati does.
Tomei charging. Branson puts it back, and they should have a play at third, but he elects to go to first, and they do get the out. And I don't think the crowd is necessarily thrilled with the choice that Chad O.J. made.
Well, the American League total 229 sacrifice bunts this year. The National League 419. There's the bunt. And to me, I think part of it, Karl, is these guys aren't used to doing that, feeling their position, making those plays. So even though it wasn't that good of a bunt, I think it did catch O.J. a little bit off guard.
It really wasn't a very good bunt, but it was effective.
Not pretty, but effective.
Pokey Reese up. Reese looks at a breaking ball, ball 1, and of course Reese playing for the injured Barry Larkin, who ruptured his left calf. Going to be gone for a while on Monday night as he was rounding first, heading into second. And it was his calf, not his heel. He's had problems with an Achilles all season long, but it was the calf muscle on Monday night. So the Reds already up 1-0. Runners on second and third here in the second, and Chad O.J. on 3 days rest, maybe laboring a little bit. To Vizquel, it's short. He fields and will get the out, but the Reds played another one as Morris comes across, and they're up 2-0.
Well, there's the effect of not doing your job and getting the lead runner at third base. If you get the lead runner, that run probably does not score. In fact, you probably get a double play on the Pokey Reese ground ball. One thing that Mike Hargrove will tell you about his ball club, they're in first place, and the same thing happened last year, even though they won. They haven't played complete baseball. They rely too much on their offense. The Indians are not doing the little things that you have to do to win more ball games.
And O.J. again behind on the count. Deion Sanders with a man on third. Swing and a miss, 1-1. Interesting. I mean, you look at Cleveland and the fact that they're in first. They're in first by 3.5, have had a relatively decent season. We know about all the Reds' problems. They're only 5 games out.
Well, they're lucky they're in the Central Division, and that's probably the best news of all for Ray Knight.
Deion to second. Side retired, 1 run across, and the Reds are on top 2-0 as O.J. marches his way back. Tomei, Williams, Ramirez coming up. Back at Jacobs Field, light breeze blowing in from left, and Matt Williams leads things off. Tomei had struck out. It was a strike him out, throw him out double play to aim the bottom of the first. So it's Matt Williams coming up, and we have touched on his struggles a little bit. 1 for his last 27, 13 for his last 93. But Mike Hargrove says this is a cleanup hitter. He bats 4th, no matter how poorly he's swinging, because he ultimately will swing his way out of it as he looks for the called strike.
The worst thing you can do as a hitter is think. And Matt Williams is thinking a little bit too much, Carl. I mean, it's my hands, my feet, my stride. Look at the pitch, do this, do that. You get all of that stuff out of the way before you come to home plate. See the ball and hit the ball. And when you're in a slump, most of the time, you take the good pitch and swing at the bad one. And we just saw the 2 examples of that.
Hargrove, the hitting instructor, and others say that Matt Williams is bailing, which means he's pulling his left foot out, so pitchers are trying to feast on the outside corner. Down 0-2, we'll see if Remlinger goes there. That one got out over the middle of the plate. Williams pops it up. Branson is there, 1 down. We now go back to Aaron Miller for an update.
Karl, it's Sky down the brace looking for a sweep as they revisit the 1992 World Series, but they'll have to come from behind. John Smoltz winless in his last 4 starts, gives up a run-scoring single to Sean Green. Ed Sprague has given Woody Williams a 1-0 lead as the Braves bat in the 3rd.
Gary, thank you very much. And Smoltz, should he lose, would be 6-6. 500 pitcher, unheard of. 1 down here, bottom of the 2nd inning. Manny Ramirez, plenty of power, hitting .314. Ball down and away. There was a time when it was Justice Ramirez, and Justice sort of went off on a tear, and people forgot about what Manny Ramirez had done. Well, now without Justice, he's still producing. Called strike, 1-1. Against the Reds, they'll be happy to pull out and not have to face him anymore. Manny 3 for 8 with a home run and an RBI. His home run on Monday was his first since May 31st. But I mentioned that tear he was on. Over his last 24 games, he's batting just shy of 400. Swing and a miss, and it's 2-2. One of the things that the Reds have hoped for was success from left-handed pitchers. Well, Kent Merker is trying to give them that. Pete Shurik again was scheduled to go tonight. Bad left elbow, so it goes on and on for Ray.
Well, if you can get all of those guys healthy, you have 4 left-handed starters in your rotation. That's a little unusual, but if you can get them, you know you're going to take them. The one thing with Remlinger starting tonight, there is no left-hander in the Cincinnati bullpen, so when it comes to matchups, that could be a problem late in the ballgame for Ray Knight.
Although, if you look at it, and it's interesting, the Indians, who hit everybody, hit lefties as well as anybody in baseball. In fact, 2nd in the majors against left-handed pitchers. About the same place. This time it's the right fielder. Green brings it in, so Ramirez and Williams both fly out towards the right side. Branson making the catch on the first one. Green on the second, and quickly there's 2 outs for Sandy Alomar.
As we mentioned earlier with Remlinger, out of the bullpen, you don't get to see him very often. There's a fastball. And, of course, from the National League to the American League, a lot of these guys from the Indians have not seen Mike Remlinger pitch. So it's that 2nd and 3rd time through the lineup, if he gets that far, that becomes very important.
Sandy Alomar, his 18-game hitting streak on the line. It will not go to 19 as he grounds out to Branson at second base. So far, no problems at all for Remlinger. It is 2-0 Reds. Back at the Jake Interleague. This series tied 1 game apiece. Another very good crowd here at Jacobs Field. Again, the site of the All-Star game in a couple of weeks. And it hasn't been a long tenure for this ballpark, but it has seen some historic moments. And we'll see some more.
Well, everybody that comes here walks away feeling very good about watching baseball here. It seems to have become an event in Cleveland, and the fact that you have a pretty good ball club that's playing down there on the field. I still think it all starts down there, but when you have this kind of a window dressing, it certainly adds to the flavor.
Cincinnati doesn't have a new ballpark, but it has a new name, and they're talking about getting a new ballpark there. And John Allen points to Cleveland and points to Texas as other places that have made it, as you said, an event, as opposed to just Baseball, just baseball, apparently isn't good enough anymore. First pitch swinging, Harris. And he goes down.
Also keep in mind, when you talk about those ball clubs here in Texas, they're pretty good teams, too. I mean, even Seattle, they're working on a new ball. It's still, sometimes you can lose sight. And I've wondered about that. Winning in some cases doesn't seem to be important anymore. Build the ballpark, they will come, that sort of approach. And it just seems, Karl, at times it's too obvious that it's just money that talks.
Baltimore, the same situation. Money is talking there. They have the best record and also a new ballpark and a good team. Willie Green is up. He did damage in the first. His 9th home run of the season. Didn't get the call on the inside corner. It goes to 1-1. And here is that home run.
Gets it out in front, and you see the right fielder, Manny Ramirez. He knows what it's like to see a ball go like that, so not much of a reaction from Ramirez.
What they had been waiting here all day to happen has. The sun has come out. 8:15 in the evening. Wind very, very light. Harris, a high swing and a miss. Green, I should say, high swing and a miss.
And that's a good job by O.J. You notice he's working the ball on the outer part of the plate, keeping the ball away, not giving in to the power.
This one to shallow left. Vizquel calls, reels it in, and that time O.J. got the better of Green.
I think that whole sequence there shows you that you don't have to overpower a hitter. You just move the ball around, and even though O.J. cannot consistently throw a fastball by hitters, he'll get them looking away and then come in with the hard fastball and jam the batter.
Eddie Taubensee, the DH tonight, has bounced around, has played left, has played a variety of positions, and he is ahead in the count, 1-0. Second time through, you mentioned the fact that perhaps for the Indians it would be an advantage because they hadn't seen Remlinger. Is it an advantage for a pitcher to see a batter for the second time, or do they immediately get on the defensive?
I always feel that the pitcher has the advantage. If he's throwing strikes, if he pitches ahead. You never know what goes through their mind, Karl. Everybody has a different approach, but as long as you have the lead, you're pitching ahead, staying in front of the hitters, keeping the ball down, you know what you're throwing. If you can throw the ball where you want to, the hitter has to guess. The term has changed so much, I think, in baseball. Hitters never like to be called guess hitters. So now they say, well, I'm looking for this pitch. Well, that means you're guessing that it's a pitch. So I'm a firm believer in as long as you're ahead in the count, you have the advantage as the pitcher. And, of course, it works the other way as a hitter.
2-2-2. Fouled away. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 outs as O.J. attempts for the first time tonight to get the Reds 1-2-3. They pushed a run across in each of the first 2. Inside, count goes full. We talk about history with regards to interleague play. Obviously, the Yankees and the Mets have it. Certainly in Chicago, there is some history. There is no history between these 2 clubs, at least that is on par with those 2. And he lost them.
No, there isn't, but it would be nice. It sets up such a natural rivalry. That's the thing I think that Major League Baseball is thinking about. But, you know, if the Orioles-Braves matchup that set up a possible World Series. People talk about that when you have Jimmy Key, Mike Mussina, and Scott Erickson going against Maddox, Smoltz, and Glavine. I mean, so many other matchups during the course of the year when interleague play is in effect. It even comes to owners, George Steinbrenner and Wayne Heisinger. And I know it was in the paper. This certainly isn't an original by me, but it was Greed 1 against Greed 2. And it makes for good reading, and it certainly makes for good conversation.
I tell you, people have said one of the arguments against interleague play is that it would in some way diminish the World Series. Well, I argue that if you see the Braves and the Orioles meet in the World Series, not that they will, but if you do, no way does an Orioles sweep of Atlanta convince me that that's the way the World Series is going to go.
Well, I agree. from a player standpoint, and I've read several articles, talked to others that say, well, it changes the All-Star game, the World Series, the playoffs, because we don't see these guys. Well, with player movement today, excuse me, the free agency, players are playing against each other all the time, one year or another.
Was that a smile?
Ray has the early lead.
2-1 now to Terry Pendleton.
O.J. has to turn things around a little bit, throwing entirely too many pitches.
Ray Knight has actually spent some time on the DL this year with a skiing accident. Glad to see that he has recovered from that, but the entire team has been hurt. Pendleton rips one to right. That'll move the runner to third. Pendleton will stay at first, and right away, first and third, is Taubensee. Doesn't need to slide.
Well, that was the 56th pitch thrown by Chad O.J. And again, you have that situation where it looks like it's an easy inning. You get a ground out and a pop-up, then a harmless little walk. Now the base hit, and it can turn into a big inning. What you don't want to do when you have a team like Cincinnati, you don't want to give them a chance to have a big inning. In other words, keep the dog under the porch. You let him out from under the porch, he's going to come out and bite you. So now Mike Hargrove, usually when the pitching coach comes out, it's somewhat of a mechanical thing. When the manager comes out, it's a little bit different, and it doesn't look like Hargrove is very happy right now.
This looks more like a lecture versus, hey, you know, you almost wonder if the thumb means if you keep this up, you're out of here.
Well, look, there, I mean, that, you know, he's not trying to embarrass his pitcher, but he's seen O.J. 0 for 3 in June. This guy is too good to be pitching like he is. In other words, you're pitching these guys like everybody that comes up is Babe Ruth. 2 balls, no strikes, 3-1, 3-2. What in the heck is going on here? And when Hargrove used the thumb on him, you know, it was basically keep that up and you're out of here. And he might even have said, you know, we can make other moves too. There are a couple of guys down in AAA just licking their chops to get up here. I mean, if that wasn't some type of a gauntlet set up for Chad O.J., I don't think I've ever seen one. Hargrove, every once in a while, he has to shake his guys up.
All right, we'll remember that. Top of the third, first and third. Whether or not that will fire up O.J. And right away, instant results. Jack McDowell has been banged up. I talked to him before the game, and to be honest, he doesn't know when or if he'll be back. There is an if. I mean, he assumes he's going to be back, but when is a bigger question mark to him as it is anyone else. Outside, and the count goes 1-1.
The thing that's hard for a manager, especially a manager that wasn't a pitcher, they can't figure out why a pitcher struggles. And in more cases than not, it's the concentration factor, Carl. You're not concentrating. There are outside elements where you're distracting yourself for one reason or another. And with Chad O.J., you can just see that when he misses, he's missing not only too often, but by too wide a margin. And here's a fellow that, for the most part, is a pretty good throw the ball over the plate type pitcher. So it just befuddles a manager. I mean, he goes up to his pitching coach, what the heck is wrong with this guy?
Morris to second. Might go up. And after the quick consultation, he gets out of it. The first guy to congratulate him as he goes to the side, the manager. Chad, you did it. The Indians coming up down 2-0. No problem so far for Mike Remlinger, who gets a start. Pete Sheriff was supposed to go, but he couldn't because of a banged-up elbow. Sure sign that he wasn't going to pitch tonight was the fact that he was icing his elbow last night. Usually you ice it after you pitch, right?
That's right. Damage control.
Remlinger has faced the minimum. Up comes Franco now. And he gets behind to Julio, 1-0. Julio, 3 walks last night. Against the Reds, he's 1 for 5. Low, 2-0. Another 300 hitter on this team, and you just look at the Reds with their offense, and you look at the Indians. I mean, the Indians are stacked from 1 through 9, and they'll be able to switch 1 and 9 whenever they want and still get results. and 3-0. Hershiser said something interesting before the game, is that the fans in Cleveland, and we talked about the fact that there's a new stadium here, and they have been so successful lately, but these fans expect Cleveland to run away with the Central Division. Oral says, now that we're sort of 4 or 5 games over 500, ball 4 to Franco. We'll get to that thought in just a sec. First, let's quickly go back to Gary Miller. Gary?
Carl, the Royals start tonight 3.5 behind the Indians, and Jeff King, who started warming up against his old team, the Pirates, continues torrid. A 13-game hit streak capped by this grand slam home run, 10 for his last 21 with 5 home runs.
King and Bell have been special for that team, but Hershiser's point was the fact that we are now 4 or 5 games over 500 and settled in. The fans now think, okay, this is a decent team who can win, stay in first, perhaps not run away with it, and it settles the players down. You agree?
Well, to me, some of the things that get overlooked is when Cleveland played as well as they did the past 2 or 3 years, with all of that hitting, what gets overlooked is their pitching, and not just their starters. Think of the guys that were here that are left, but the bullpen, they totally overmatched, the Indian bullpen overmatched every team in the American League. They could get you from the 5th inning to the 9th better than anybody I've seen in years and years. And not just 1 or 2 guys, that whole bullpen. Julian Taveras is gone. A couple of others that don't come to mind right away, but that was the difference. Now they're struggling a little bit because the other clubs are scoring more runs against the Indians.
Part of the problem as well has been the fact that Jose Mesa has really sort of struggled not only on the field but off the field, and that has sort of made a mess of their closer and who should be the setup man and whatnot, and that's been a big problem here. And I think the fact that that's unsettled, the rest of the bullpen's unsettled. You talked about the fact that perhaps Brett Boone is on his way down to AAA to get some work. You believe that maybe Jose Mesa sent down to get some work?
Well, I said that 3 weeks ago when we did a game here, Carl, and I still believe that, because years ago players would say no way, but because it would affect their salary. Well, with the money they're making today, they're still going to get the big cash. So Mesa, let's just say he goes down from now until the All-Star break, pitches an inning every other day, comes back after the break and says, okay, boys, let's go. You know, I mean, I think it's a move that would help him immensely and his ball club.
Trinidad Hubbard making his first start last night, went 1 for 3, and he's immediately up on the count, now 2-1. I think Remlinger had a less volatile version of what we saw Mike Hargrove give to Chad O.J. as he walked Franco and then immediately got behind 2-0 to Hubbard. And again, we're now talking 7, 8, 9 hitters. That's not the time to do it. Outside, so he's 3-1.
I wanted to get back to that bullpen. It was Alan Embry. You had Shuey coming up, Taveras. O.J. at the time was in the bullpen. And when you got back to those years, when the Indians went to the World Series, that pitching staff, top to bottom, it wasn't 1 or 2 starters and a guy out of the bullpen. It was a 10 or 11-man staff that was all quality.
Franco caught in a rundown. Good move by Remlinger. They run him back, and he was tagged. Good move that time by Remlinger, and obviously the advantage he has is the fact that he's used to coming in with men on base.
Well, and this is one of those situations where Cleveland not doing the little things. The count's 3 balls and a strike to the hitter. You don't get caught picked off in a situation like this, and that's why I said you have to guess with Remlinger or any left-hander. It's tough to get a big jump. Your job is to make sure the pitch is made and then run. So really poor base running on Franco's part. They're giving the Reds too many chances, making too many early mistakes.
3-2, fastball on the outside corner, called the strike. Hubbard followed by Vizquel, and Omar had a massive night last night. In fact, it was a year ago this day, as the ball is hit to right. Green going back to the track, and he reels it in. So 2 down. It was on this day last year. Grand slam for Omar Vizquel. Sunday night baseball. It will be the National League West. Interleague is over for now. Dodgers against the Giants. When you talk about rivals, Mike Piazza enjoying playing DH. Back behind the plate, went 4 for 4 yesterday. Barnes beginning to show signs of coming out of his slump. Dodgers and Giants, Sunday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time. And don't forget, ESPN baseball tonight right before that. There are 2 down for Omar. Ball high. Not a big fan of batting ninth, Omar, but the season-high 5 RBI last night, the most by an Indian this year.
You always hear about players being rewarded for certain things. Vizquel, his first time up, a man at second, nobody out. He gives himself up, hits the ball to the right side, advances the runner. Even though the Indians didn't score, well, he gets the reward later on. Gets a base hit, knocks in 2, then the home run knocks in 3. Those are the little intangibles that you hear about in the ball game, or you don't hear, excuse me, where you're moving the runner over. Your teammates know about it, but it gets overlooked quite often.
Fooled him there. Not because he was guessing, but because he was looking for the pitch, and he apparently was looking for the wrong one.
He looked for this, and he got that.
2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 down. Remlinger trying to get his first 9 out, and he can't as it drops in, and Vizquel rounds first and would stay. So Omar Vizquel's hot hitting continues as the Indians get their first hit of the game, and it comes courtesy of an Omar Vizquel slap to right.
The Indians are football's answer to a quick strike offense.
Yep.
And that's why you have to be careful top to bottom. And there just isn't very many breaks, if any, in their lineup. You get a chance to shut them down, you really have to do it, because a hit here, a hit there, then a bomb. And then you get in their bullpen. The Indians get in the other team's bullpen most of the time. That's where they really rake you.
Grissom now up. A home run threat, though this year we haven't seen too much of that. He's got 2 this season. He also has been banged up a little bit. They play him straight away. There's about 50 or 60 feet down the left field line that he has to work with.
Well, when you start the season on the DL, or early in the season like Grissom did, it's hard to catch up. His track record will show that by the time the year winds down, he'll probably have his numbers up there where they belong.
And you have to wonder, as is baseball in life, I mean, certain people take time to adjust to certain situations. Justice, the move here, seemed to deal with it quite well. Perhaps Grissom wasn't quite set to do that.
I think it was a shock.
It certainly, yeah.
The trade itself was a huge shock. Now, that doesn't mean that Marquise Grissom cannot adjust to it. David Justice knew that he was going somewhere, so I don't think it bothered him. It was obvious. I don't think Marquise Grissom had any clue he was going anywhere from Atlanta. So there's some part of it where players feel like they're not wanted by a ball club, but they're going somewhere else. But players have to realize it's such a business that that's part of the game.
Vizquel off, strike 3 swinging. It'll throw down to get Grissom. Inning is over. The Indians do manage to get their first hit, but still have yet to push a run across. It's 2-zip. Well, that's what the baseball looks like to Omar Vizquel, who continues his hot hitting. However, he was stranded, and the Reds come up to bat in the top of the 4th, up 2-0. Joe Oliver, in his first at bat, singled back to the pitcher, went off O.J.'s glove to the hole at short. Vizquel was over covering, so there was no play made. And Oliver, 1 for 1, foul back. Now in a hole 0-2. Throwaway pitch on 0-2. See if Oliver would chase. He didn't. Ooh. Inside and high.
Good pitch. Perhaps trying to set up that outside corner again, or the breaking ball.
Exactly.
There's the curveball. It seems that in the 5 pitches now that Chad O.J. has thrown, he's more animated. Now, he got out of that last inning by getting Morris to ground out after the trip to the mound by Mike Hargrove. And it all may add up to what we'll see from this inning on.
More energy.
Yes, he seems to be exerting himself a little bit more, O.J. does.
So Oliver has spent some time on the DL this year as well, but who hasn't in this organization? And O.J. lost him. After going up 0-2, he walks him. Branson, who laid down a sac bunt in his first at-bat, may do the same here. Try to get another run across. I mean, against this team, as you mentioned, any run is a positive run. You can't have too many against this offense.
Right, and you almost figure if he did it in the second, why not here in the fourth? Unless, and you never know what a manager, what button he might push. Perhaps move the slow runner at first base. Well, they weren't bunting, and Joe Oliver obviously does not run at all. But it's a way to maybe stay out of a double play. All you need to do sometimes is just put a player in motion, whether it's successful or not. It gets the other team thinking a little bit more.
And the fact of the matter is, they sacrifice because they don't have home run hitters. Only the Phillies have fewer home runs. They're not going to get the long ball out of this team. They don't score a lot of runs. So if you can get 3 up and perhaps get a great pitching performance, obviously Remlinger is not going to go the distance, I don't think, because he hasn't started yet. Well, it'd be a real bonus if he did. But Reggie Sanders, who's on the DL, he's their true power hitter, and that's a big hole with him out of the lineup. Good breaking ball there as Mike Hargrove sits on the bench. Talked about contract extensions. He recently got one. And for a while, there was a contentious state here in Cleveland whether or not John Hart would reward him with one, but he has. 1-2 now to Branson. And again, word is around the ballpark that Brett Boone will go down to AAA as Branson has established himself since being recalled. Yes, he's hitting 174 as an average, but since he was recalled, he's up in the 333 area. This could be 2. And it is. Well, when you get behind with 2 strikes, you're not going to lay a sacrifice bunt down, so he does well, you notice what the manager didn't want. You notice how quickly Franco and Vizquel, how easily they work together. Vizquel gets the ball so quickly that it's just a day at the beach for the Indian shortstop. Look, he gets to the bag, has plenty of time, and it's just a nice little walk in the park to finish off the double play. Boy, it's fun watching Omar Vizquel. I'm telling you, you talk about someone who could put on a clinic. He is unbelievable. Glove man, great throws. Of course, he had problems with his shoulder last year, but it seems to be much better now. Pokey Reese grounded to Omar his first time up. Some guys have to work on it. Others it comes naturally to. Vizquel claims he's not a natural hitter. He is a natural fielder. Though the last couple nights would belie that, the fact that he's had the 5 RBIs last night and is already 1 for 1 tonight. Well, O.J. again ahead, so the 3 batters he has faced so far this inning, he has gotten ahead in the count. And we go back to the chewing out he received from Mike Hargrove as perhaps the launching pad for that. Inside, and we'll see again if it sets up the outside pitch. Deion Sanders on deck, hoping to get another shot at it. Williams, the finger unaffected on the throw over. And through 3.5. The Reds are on top, 4-0.
ESPN's Wednesday Night Baseball is brought to you by Wheaties, the breakfast of champions, and by Frosted Brewed Coors Light, who reminds you the 3 most important words are, hey, beer man.
Kevin Seitzer into the batter's box, down 0-1. Facing Remlinger, who got him with a fastball on the first pitch. And he goes high again. And Seitzer in a hole 0-2. Another guy who has struggled a wee bit as far as offense goes, only 222 for a guy who's usually up in the 60s, 70s, 80s area.
Well, you saw the swing prior to that last pitch, and it seems that a few of the Indians, like Seitzer, are over-swinging. And when you get behind, and it's still so early in the ball game, the term they try to hit that 5 or 6 run home run. Just go up there and try to hit the ball, make good contact, and it just seems like too many of the Indians are going up there and trying to go long ball off Remlinger. And Remlinger is only allowed, he's only pitched 28 innings, but he's allowed just 2 home runs this year.
Well, Seitzer has worked the count full 3-2. Let alone hitting a 5-run home run. He's only hit 1 home run this year, so don't know that he should be swinging for the fences. Down 2-0 are the Indians. And a good battle by Kevin as he heads over to first. And up now a man who can hit a home run, Jim Thome. Pitching coach Don Gullick goes to the phone, unlocks the door, makes a call. Remlinger in his last inning also got behind, walked a few.
Well, the next pitch will be Remlinger's 50th. So I think at this point you have to concern yourself. Now there's a swing that the hitter never saw the ball, Carl. If you could see that again, Jim Thome, his head completely off the pitch. It was as if he was searching for the ball with the bat. Didn't really see it at all.
What he did see was a ball flying over the right field wall for a 2-run home run, but he actually missed the ball that he was attempting to hit. That time he checks it. Jimmy McKeon down at third. The crew chief says no.
Well, you look at Thome's approach. He has an open stance, and then he'll try to step from first base more toward the pitcher. You have to step that way and keep the front shoulder in. When that shoulder flies out, you're in trouble.
Thome gets jammed. This one back, and it will be out of play. Just behind home plate. Not a great deal of foul territory here at Jacobs Field. Most unique feature, that huge scoreboard over in left field. The one that was hit earlier this season by Mark McGuire off Oral Hershiser. So far, though, Remlinger, despite the fact that he's got a pretty decent pitch count, in a spot start, he has given up only 1 hit.
Now, there's a good view of Jim Thome with the open stance. The front shoulder that's very important. He has to stay in there.
Rung up by Eric Cooper. A few words for Eric, and this season we have seen the zero-tolerance policy put into effect quite a bit by umpires. Take a look. It looked to be a pretty decent pitch.
Well, back in the first inning, it was a big breaking ball that Thome was called out. This one was a little bit tighter.
Interleague play, American League crews and American League parks, National League crews and National League parks, and they are not mixing the umpires.
Good idea. There's already a few problems. Now, I think Matt Williams went around there, and again, to me, an example of not seeing the ball well. It goes down to concentration. When a pitcher struggles, it's usually concentration. When a hitter struggles, his mind is somewhere else. He's thinking about too many things instead of just get in there, see the ball, hit it.
High 1-1. There are some who think that he's actually, as you say, pressing too much, and apparently he has after games where he has gone over, literally just sat and stared into his locker, and people have stayed away. A very, very intense baseball player, and he, more than anybody, doesn't like what's going on. This is a chance for a double play. Pendleton a second. Good scoop by Branson, and they don't get him at first. Good play at second by Branson to make the turn, but Williams beats the throw to first.
Well, Matt Williams is the toughest guy on Matt Williams, and the Reds might have gotten a break here. Timing is the thing about a double play ball, but when you throw the ball in the dirt, It takes the short hop. Can't see it there. Branson may have come off the bag, but the rule of thumb in baseball, if you're in the neighborhood around the bag turning the double play, usually going to get the call. You see Branson come across the bag, and, well, he just started to pick his foot up when he made the play, and that's close enough.
Manny Ramirez up. Whoa, that gets away. Williams will go to second. He'll take a look at third as Oliver goes back, but he decides to stay.
Now, Mike Remlinger, for a while, and this was out of the bullpen. Here's a look at that last pitch. It looked like he tried to throw a changeup and hung on to it a little bit too long. But Remlinger went in 33 appearances. 26 of those appearances, he shut the other team down. That was an ERA of 1.74. But over that period of time, it was 10 1/3 innings. So you're talking about a guy that one hitter there, one hitter here, there, and all of that. Still early in the ball game. The Indians need to show a little patience and make this guy pitch, but the Reds have the bullpen active at the moment.
Ramirez fouls one off to right.
You know, coming in, Carl, Ray Knight had it set up. Who's my 3-inning pitcher after Remlinger? You figure 3 or 4 from your starter, then 3, 2, and 1, or however you have to go. But anything beyond 4 innings for Mike Remlinger is a huge bonus for the Reds.
And Ramirez fouls another one back. Williams goes back to second. He is the only Indian to touch second base tonight and stay there. They have not had anyone on second base prior to this. The biggest threat they had was in the last inning. Franco walked, then was caught stealing prior to Vizquel hitting a single. Down to Pendleton, and he's going to have to hurry. Ramirez down to first, and he got him by a few steps. Good play by Terry Pendleton. Figured in a couple of good plays at third base. Still, no runs across for the Indians. We're heading to the 5th in a quick-moving game, 2-0. Reds up 2-0 over the Indians. Some artwork being displayed here at Jacobs Field. And Deion Sanders, a big part of the Reds offense. And here's Ray Knight giving him a few pointers.
Keep hitting, Deion. Stay healthy, stay healthy. Please don't get it. Sanders missed a few games with a bum ankle, but he's back in there doing a nice job. Stay healthy, Deion. Stay healthy.
That's right. Just don't get hurt. Deion looks at a ball. Mentioned the fact that he leads the major leagues in stolen bases. Currently on pace to steal 81. Also among the leaders in the league in hits and multi-hit games, and obviously triples for a guy who's got the wheels that Sanders has. He's up 2-0 on the count. And Deion slaps one to the gap in left. Easy play out there for Trinidad Hubbard, and there is one down.
Well, they're doing a fine job of shutting down the Reds' running game. No question about that. And actually, Cincinnati beating Cleveland Indian style with the long ball. And for the most part, if O.J. doesn't mess up that ground ball that Oliver hit, it's a 1-0 game rather than a 2-0 game.
Lenny Harris flew out to the center fielder and also went second to first, so he is 0 for 2. O.J. down 2-0. They play Harris straight away, and generally we see with most hitters, you know, as much as this is done on advanced scouting because obviously the leagues haven't seen each other, for the most part you're playing hitters straight away.
Well, you try to defense the hitter and then pitch accordingly.
Harris slow roll, that stays fair. Tomei makes the easy put up.
And the thing about that, Karl, is if your control is off, you might as well throw the defense completely out of the picture. Hitters are creatures of habit. They're going to hit certain ways 90% of the time. Sure, every once in a while they'll cross a pitcher up or a defense up. And you see the 82 pitches thrown by O.J. Luckily, and I say that loosely, he's only walked 3, but we're only in the 5th inning. It could be much worse than it is, but the fact that he's allowed 4 hits and the 1 home run, otherwise no real damage. But you set the defense, you pitch accordingly. And if your control is off, boy, it adds up in a hurry. The extra base hits.
His 84th pitch of the night, one more than he had in his last outing, which was just 3 days ago. There's a good pitch in the outside corner. This is his first ever appearance against the Reds. He was supposed to start in a spring training game. These two teams do meet in spring training, but believe it or not, that game was rained out. So he is facing the Reds for the first time in his career. This is his 7th start of the year at home. And Tommy busy. Quick inning. Good inning for Chad O.J. The pitch count, which was rising quickly, doesn't go up too far. Indians will try to push a few across. It is 2-0 as we go to the bottom.
Gary Miller with an update from County Stadium. Andy Bennis had a 3-0 lead, then it was 3-1, and then in the second he loaded the bases, and Jeremy Burnett eats up Dimitri Young. Turns into a 3-run triple. Cirillo knocks him in. The Brewers start tonight 3.5 back, Karl.
All right, Gary, thank you very much. And the Indians start their at bat, 2 down in this game. Sandy Alomar to left. Will it stay fair? It is hooking foul in his bid for home run number 11. Sandy Alomar celebrating birthdays. This has been a season of celebrations. Oh, 2 now in the hole to Remlinger. Outside. Indians interleague play and all in the middle of a 10-day, 9-game homestand. The Reds in the middle of a 10-day, 9-game road trip. They've had some success on it. Alomar, Remlinger, 1 down. So often, Jim, as a former pitcher, you can attest to this. The fact that a guy hits a foul ball 400 feet, sometimes that's almost intentional from a pitcher. I mean, when somebody hits the ball that far and it's foul, I think we saw Albert Dell do it the other night. I mean, you're getting him to do what you want, get out ahead of a pitch, aren't you?
Well, you are, and it's hard for a hitter to come back and do much after that. They may get a base hit, they may get a walk, but you've upset his timing just enough. And sometimes pitchers will do that. They'll throw the ball just inside enough or take just enough off the pitch that the hitter will be right on it and hammer the ball, but a little bit too far out in front. Again, it's offset or upsetting the hitter's timing just enough.
Franco walked in his first at bat, which came in the 3rd. And again, the Indians only 1 hit so far off Mike Remlinger. Out of play.
Well, you get a game like this, and it goes so many different ways. You can see Mike Remlinger perhaps go an inning or 2 more, which is one of a very impressive outing for him. Or if he caves a little bit, does the floodgates open? Just not quite sure, but the Indians, for the most part, you have not seen very many real good, consistent swings. And usually when that's the case, it's because the guy out there on the mound is doing a pretty good job.
Generally, the Reds won't hurt themselves as far as defense goes either. I mean, they have made fewer errors in the field than everybody except the Rockies. And Franco pulls another one foul, getting way ahead of the ball. So they won't make mistakes. And Brett Boone, who you say is likely on his way down, leading second baseman in fielding percentage at .996, but it's not his fielding that's the problem.
No, and when you struggle like the Reds are, you almost have to play a perfect game. You have to get good pitching, timely hitting, play very good defense. It's a combination of things. When you're a team that is winning fairly consistently, on one night the hitting will carry you. Maybe the next night the pitching.
2-2 to Franco. Just missed outside, so it goes full 3-2. Strike 3 swinging, and down goes Franco. You do a lot of things to fire your team up over the course of a season. Ray Knight actually attempted to coach third base, fire his crew up, worked for a spell, but they haven't been playing badly. They've won 4 of their last 6 and 7 of their last 11.
Yeah, and he found out something about his ball club. Coaching over there, apparently not enough of them were in shape, so he had a few of the fellas working out a little bit more and getting their bodies in better shape. The book according to Ray.
It's an interesting book.
Well, Trinidad Hubbard, the batter, and that might be what Ray Knight is looking at, the book on Trinidad Hubbard. When you see a hitter stand up there holding the bat that close to his body, he has to be either quick or very strong to get around on good hard stuff. You don't see too many batters. There are a few that have that approach, but there you see a good fastball, and that's not an overpowering fastball, but lively, and Hubbard can't catch up with it. He locks himself up with his hands right on his hips.
2 balls, 1 strike. And Remlinger has faced the minimum so far. And this is a guy, as you mentioned, who has not gone many innings at all. I mean, prior to tonight, in the month of June, he's pitched 4 third innings in 8 appearances. Foul back. But I think, you know, we made the point. In the case of the Reds, where they are, where they have been, try things.
Well, every once in a while, Carl, you have to find a body. It's just, it's not the case of, well, this guy is doing so much for us, because they need Remlinger in the bullpen. He's doing a great job down there. But on a given night, for whatever reason, we need somebody to go out there, and he's doing it tonight.
Steve Wright, 3. Again, he has faced the minimum. We have played 5. 6, 7, 8, 9 to come as we return to Jacobs Field after this. Back to Jacobs Field, and Eddie Tomazy in a 0-1 hole already. Crackstaff points out that Remlinger has faced 2 over the minimum. Not 15, but 17. Though he has yet to work hard at getting men, once they're on, off. He's working hard.
Very hard.
Tomazy to Vizquel, who calls. And there is 1 down. Guess what's back? The X Games, and they have shifted coast from Rhode Island now to San Diego. 11 events, including aggressive inline skating, walkboarding, bicycle stunt, barefoot jumping, big air snowboarding. There's no long drive contest there. You would have success at.
You know what? I'm telling you, I watch some of that, and it makes me nervous. How do they do some of those things? That's what's amazing to me. I mean, obviously, I'd be dating myself, but
I don't know if it's the how, but the why.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. Do they get paid for that, or is it all in fun?
Well, what it does is what baseball is having trouble doing. I mean, it attracts this young group of viewers, which is what Major League Baseball is sort of struggling with right now. And I don't know that interleague play is the answer when it comes to young fans, but it's an answer as far as fans go, as numbers are up all across the board. But that's what 15, 16, 17-year-olds are into.
Well, in regard to the interleague play, if there's some way to balance the schedule, make it uniform, make all the rules the same, forget this DH here and not there. Let's, get it together. You take 1 step forward and 3 backwards. if you're going to do something, do it the right way or don't do it. I mean, this is an experimental year, and right now, to me anyway, ownership is going to have to do something more in the right way, because the players ultimately will say, hey, forget it. You know, it's a two-way street, and you don't want to spoil the players. Obviously, they're spoiled pretty much a lot already.
Vizquel calls, and there are 2 outs. There's Mike Remlinger, again facing 17 men. And he has thrown 76 pitches. 42 of those have been over the plate for strikes.
And here we are in the middle of June. Normally, this time of year, it's very hot, humid, but this is a pitcher's night as well, Carl. It's very pleasant. The weather won't drain you here, and he is on cruise control so far.
Morris steps in, lines out to Tobe. Another quick inning for Chad Oj, who has settled down since Mike Hargrove came out and got in his face. Mike Remlinger coming back to face Vizquel, Grissom, and Seitzner. July 8th, the All-Star game comes to Jacobs Field. The Indians, as a team, have hosted the All-Star game. This will be their 5th time, which is the most in the majors. Cities like New York and Chicago have hosted more, but as far as individual teams go, the Indians with 5, the leader in the majors. Omar Vizquel is up in his first at bat. He singled to right, continuing his hot hitting. Remlinger quickly ahead in the count. 0-1 to Vizquel. And as you said, this really should be a 1-0 game, so it has been a very good pitcher's duel. On the night we showed up at the ballpark and expected to see Bartolo Colon and Pete Jurek pitching.
Well, sometimes that shock treatment works for some fellas. What do you mean I'm pitching? Well, they don't have time to go out there and think about it and prepare in a way that thinking about all the negative things. You just get the ball and go get them.
On a 1-1 pitch, Vizquel sharply to center. Dion trots over and makes the catch. Flips to his buddy in right. Willie Green fires it back in.
Well, there's Jim Bowden, the GM for the Reds. He has to be a happy fellow right now. I had a chance before the ball game to talk with Joe Nuxall, and we were talking about behind home plate. There are some ballparks that are obviously new to pitchers, in this case Remlinger here in this ballpark. There's more room behind home plate to the screen as opposed to Cincinnati, and it does make a difference in perception, Carl. Joe mentioned a couple of ballparks when he pitched way back a long time ago, but in Pittsburgh, in Old Forbes Field, there are some parks that you feel like home plate is twice the distance from the mound. It's just the perception of what's behind home plate. In Cincinnati, with their background, home plate looks a little bit closer. And apparently tonight, obviously, it doesn't have any kind of an effect on Remlinger because he's throwing the ball very well. But that is something that could come into play for some pitchers. And as long as I'm mentioning Joe Nuxall, it was last week he celebrated it was 53 years ago last week when he stepped on the major league mound as a 15-year-old who that is still a record in the big leagues. And every once in a while, Joe will still throw batting practice. He's something else. He is a fun guy.
15 years. They do that in tennis now with the 15-year-olds and the 14 and 12-year-olds, but not baseball. Franco through on a 2-2 pitch. He goes to right, and the Indians have their second hit of the ball game.
Well, that could be a better approach, and again, that second and third time through the lineup, you notice Vizquel hit the ball the other way. Maybe not by intent, but what I'm getting at is not trying to pull a Remlinger, not pulling off the ball, staying on it. You might get the base hit up the middle or a base hit the other way, because now you're getting to that part in the ball game where it gets dangerously close to a loss, so the Indians have to try and kick something in gear.
Grissom off first, and anytime it seems as if Remlinger gives up a couple of balls in a row or a hit, Don Gullett quickly gets busy, and you can see the meeting of the minds in the Reds bullpen. You really can't have a lot of faith in him going deep because he hasn't done it.
No, and when you go through the kind of year they've gone through so far, you look over your shoulder and say, uh-oh, is this the inning that it happens? Because it's happened so many times. But that's where Ray Knight has another job to do. He has to keep his players confident and ready to play every day and play a hard 9 innings.
Seitzner up on the count, 1-0. Good fastball. He still has zip on his ball.
Yeah, he does, and there's that big swing again by Kevin Seitzner. See, they're down 2-0. He figures, well, if I can pop one here, it ties the ball game. But very few players can go up there or have gone up there trying to hit a home run. It will with the big guys every once in a while. They'll try to power the ball, but it doesn't work most of the time.
Good job by Oliver, who appeared to be fooled by the pitch, and it is now 2-1. Seitzer so far flied to right in the first. In the fourth, he walked. Activity now on the diamond, and we see also activity in the Reds bullpen. Gullett out to talk to Remlinger.
Well, one former left-hander talking to a present left-hander, and really what you're out here to ask him is, how do you feel? Do you still have enough? I mean, there are two things that you concern yourself about this type of the ball game. If your pitcher gets tired, he will walk people, get the ball up, or try to overthrow the ball and throw it in the dirt. See Stan Belinda tossing in the pen.
Well, the Reds came into the game as the only team in the majors who have yet to have a starter throw a complete game. So, based on the activity we have seen and the fact that Remlinger hasn't started yet prior to tonight, we will not see a complete game again from the Reds. And as a result of that, the Reds bullpen has some guys who have many innings, and Belinda is one of them. So 2-1 now. Remlinger throws over to first. Grissom is back.
There's Don Gullett. Don Gullett believes in pitch counts. Ray Knight, the manager, doesn't. 89 pitches thrown at this point by Remlinger, but tonight you just wonder if everything is thrown out the window.
Grissom's gone, and he has the base stolen this time.
Whoa!
Caught stealing earlier. That time the foot is in. Oliver says no. Pokey Reese says, I'm not sure about it. Grissom is happy.
Watch John Hirschbeck, the umpire. He started to ring Grissom up, but he sees the tag is behind the foot. You see, he started to get in position and throw up the right arm, and at the very last moment realized that Grissom got the foot in ahead of the tag. Not a bad throw by Oliver. He felt that he did his job, and he did. It was just that Grissom got there quickly enough, and the tag was on the back of the foot.
So Grissom now 12 for 18, but apparently he has banged himself up, and he may have hurt himself sliding in. Take another look at it.
Yeah, pretty good jump, but as we mentioned, Remlinger does a nice job of unloading the ball. And you see that Grissom just getting in ahead of the tag. The tag will be on the back of the foot. That's why he was called safe. The swipe tag, you try to get that tag in front of the foot.
He was out earlier this year with a strained right hamstring, and it appeared to be the right leg again, and he is not happy. Nose injuries, hamstring injuries. You think you're healthy, you sprint, and all of a sudden you feel a twinge again.
Well, I've never seen anything like it. Players that are bigger, stronger, faster, that whole routine that you hear about in baseball today, and actually in most sports, all of them, more injuries. There are more people going down. I clipped out both the American and National League Disabled list this year, and it amazes me on how many people are going down on a day-to-day basis. Unbelievable.
Indians threatening now with a man on second, one down. Seitzer staring at a 2-2 count from Remlinger. To right and out of play.
Well, we saw Mike Hargrove there, and to me it's funny. Mike was talking with his pitching coach earlier about Chad O.J. Now it's that point in the ball game where he goes to Charlie Manuel and says, hey, come on, what's the deal here? Why aren't these guys hitting? What can we do? Look under his hat. Maybe there are a couple runs there.
Just looking for an ear to bend. Well, Reese sneaks in behind Grissom. The fact that he's sort of hobbling around out there, I don't know what threat he's going to be to run, or be interesting to see if a ball is hit into the outfield, if he's able to come around from third to score. 2-2 pitch to right again, fouled out of play. Well, they played the U.S. Open. Now it is time for the Senior PGA Tour, the nationwide championship. The two-time defending Senior PGA Player of the Year is Jim Colbert. He's the defending champ. That is coming up Friday, June 20th through the 22nd of June on ESPN.
Another good,
works at the 3-2.
Another good job by Oliver. I should mention that the Reds pitching staff couldn't wait for Oliver to be activated. They feel, the Reds do, that They have so much confidence in him behind the plate. And it's not that the pitching staff doesn't like the other catchers. It's just that the feeling is that Oliver gets a little bit more out of them.
Again, out of play. So Seitzer is battling. And again, Remlinger, who hasn't thrown that many innings or that many pitches, force him into an at-bat like this, and it's going to hurt.
And that pitch count going up, it's over 100 now, I believe. And the thing is, you're getting to the meat of the Indians' order. Even though Tomei has not looked good tonight, he struck out twice. Matt Williams struggling, Manny Ramirez, they still are very dangerous.
Full count, one down. Grissom is going. And Seitzer goes to right. Green will get it. Grissom is forced to go back. And now tags, and he's on his way to third. And I guess the leg is okay. A lot of running done by Marquis Grissom. He had almost gone all the way to third when the ball was lifted to right. Went back to tag up on Willie Green. I know something about his arm, so he is on third with 2 down.
Well, as a group, not real strong arms in the Cincinnati outfield. And remember, Willie Green had been a third baseman, used in the outfield at the moment. So Grissom, of course, you have to give those advanced scouts a pat on the back. See Willie Green kind of drifting back on the ball. And I think when he sees Marquis Grissom coming back to second base, initially feels that the runner wouldn't tag in advance, but he did.
Jim Tomei now looks at a ball inside, so the first time an Indians player has been on third base. There are 2 down. Ray Knight, as he has been most of this season, a little on edge. And as you mentioned, the fact that their record has been so poor, the question is not if, it's just when. When do I come out? When do we make the move? Tomei, 1-1.
And that's always the toughest job for any manager. So many times it's a pitch too early or a pitch too late. And I am a firm believer. There are some people that say that former pitchers don't make good managers. I totally disagree with that. Many times a manager will rely heavily on his catcher for the information.
2-1. What is interesting, though, is you mentioned the fact that Don Gullett, a former pitcher, believes in pitch count, and yet the manager doesn't. So as a pitcher, then whose side are you on?
Well, the pitcher, to me, always wants the ball. Pitch count or no pitch count. You want the guy out there that doesn't want to come out of the ball game no matter how many pitches he's thrown. And for Remlinger, just to make it official, this will be his 102nd pitch, I believe. I know it's over 100 now, so bottom line, it's been a great job at this point for Mike Remlinger.
Well, Tomei has been walked a lot, and one of the reasons is you just saw how effective he has been with men in scoring position. A big spot here is the Indians haven't put any across, and they are in the bottom of the 6th, down 2-0. Tomei ahead on the count, 3-1. 3-2 as he goes.
Sharp little breaking ball. It's tough to pick up the spin. That tells you that Remlinger has a tight spin on the breaking ball. It looks like a fastball. Just when you start to swing, that's when the ball starts to break.
You mentioned Oliver's effectiveness. This is the staff that has an ERA just under 5. When he catches, starter's ERA is 3.21. Big spot in the game, 3-2, 2 down to Tomei. Fouled back.
Boy, he just doesn't want to walk, does he? That was ball 4. And just to repeat myself, Matt Williams on deck. He's struggling, but I'm telling you, the guy is a threat. And Williams has seen Remlinger. In fact, they were teammates in San Francisco. So Williams at least knows what to look for. It's just a matter of whether he can catch up to it or not.
Strike 3. Great job by Mike Remlinger as he gets Tomei out. Grissom is stranded at third. Ray Knight breathes a sigh of relief. Remlinger, will he come back? We will.
ESPN's Wednesday Night Baseball is brought to you by the Delta Faucet Company. Delta, the faucet.
Back at the Jake. Chevy Chase on vacation with his family to see some objects that you generally wouldn't see. Well, you're looking at the largest freestanding scoreboard in the United States. Not the House of Mud, but it's impressive. Since Chad O.J. got a talking to, he has been impressive as well. Sharp hit, and that is through. Joe Oliver will be on first with a leadoff single here to start the seventh.
And that base hit will get the Indians bullpen active. You get to a certain point in the ball game, and again, OJ throwing a few more pitches than normal. From the seventh inning on, leadoff men, base hits, walk perhaps, signals the bullpen to get ready, and they'll start throwing.
June has not been a good month to Chad OJ, and so far tonight his offense hasn't given him any support. Branson now up as OJ throws over to first. In the fourth, Branson grounded into a double play. In the second, he laid down a sac bunt. There, he threatened to do it, perhaps to see where Matt Williams was going, what Jim Tomei was going to do at first.
And Joe Oliver is not an easy base runner to bunt over. There's Paul Ossenmacher getting ready. So it would take a pretty good bunt. One of the finest fielding third basemen in the game, Matt Williams, drawn up at third. It's also OJ's responsibility to try and cut down the lead, field his position, and I think most important of all, throw strikes. The more you get behind the hitter, the more options it gives Ray Knight. So it's ball one right now. You don't want to go to ball two.
Again, Threats pulls back, and it is 2-0.
Well, now you might get a free swing if you're Jeff Branson. And by that I mean just maybe, because it's a 2-0 ball game, a little late. Perhaps starting Joe Oliver. It is a risk, but the way things are going for Ray Knight so far tonight, he may take the chance.
2-0 to Branson. Squares, pops it up, and it's unplayable.
Well, Ray Knight staying with the book. He had the book out a while ago, and he read the book. Staying with it with Branson. Now they're going to check Joel Youngblood, the third base coach, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Williams over to talk to OJ. He has a bruised right middle finger on his right hand, as Matt Williams, and when he grips the bat and squeezes it tightly and swings at a pitch on the outside corner, it has hurt him. It has on occasion hurt him when he has thrown the ball over to first. Basically, it stings and then goes numb. So far, he has handled all the balls hit to him tonight. 2-1 pitch on the way to Branson. Oliver goes. The throw down from Alomar, and Oliver is dead.
Well, there's the free swing. You're ahead in the count. So Ray Knight took the gamble. You just wondered at what point might he do that. Oliver does not run well. He does look back, but in this case, it doesn't make any difference. And that might have been what Matt Williams said to OJ. Look, don't let up on this guy. Give him your best stuff. So he throws a fastball by Jeff Branson.
3-2 now. And as you said, the fact is you don't want to look back to see where the ball is, because that'll slow you down. But in the case of Joe Oliver, wouldn't have made much difference.
Right.
Branson fouls off the inside pitch. We go 3-2. One down. Top of the seventh in a 2-0 game, led by the Reds. That one to short left field. Williams and Vizquel and Omar calls it, and he makes the play. When we are through, we will send you out to Qualcomm, Oakland, and San Diego. Dave Ryan and Kevin Kennedy standing by to call the A's and the Padres, coming your way at approximately 10:30 Eastern Time. Rumors abound about Mark McGwire perhaps moving. There are teams like the Orioles and the Blue Jays interested in getting a big bat in their lineup. The Indians feel as if they're one big pitcher away. That will drop. Reese with a single. So with 2 down, the Reds have another threat. And now you look at if Oliver hadn't moved. You're looking at first and second. Instead, 2 down and 1 on.
And here comes Mike Hargrove. That may be it for OJ, and that he will get the call. You're at that point in the ball game, quite a few pitches, 7th inning. Deion Sanders 0 for 3 against O.J., and Paul Ossenmacher, who has that big curve, most likely will get the call from the bullpen.
We'll see lefty versus lefty. O.J. is done, didn't pitch poorly, gives up 6 hits and 2 runs, but his team is in a hole. Back with more after this. Interleague play has meant a 37% increase in attendance in ballparks, almost 9,000 more. That's never really an issue here at Jacobs Field with the quality of play that the Indians have put on the field. Down 2-0 tonight, and in comes Paul Ossenmacher. In 31 games this year, 15 in the third, 12 Ks, and as you mentioned, he's got a breaking ball that doesn't stop.
He has struggled this year ERA-wise, but when you get a fellow in a situation like this, his job is to not let Cincinnati get any more men on base. Now, I mentioned earlier that Ray Knight had stacked his lineup with left-handers, and that's the way it continues down the order. Lenny Harris, Willie Green, Eddie Taubensee. So Ossenmacher, if he doesn't get the first man, sometimes there's that comfort zone out there, Karl. So his control, big factor right now. Get ahead of Sanders. Deion Sanders has big-time trouble trying to hit a breaking ball when it's down from a lefty.
On any other night, Chad O.J. would be applauded. Decent effort, 6 2/3, the 2 runs, both of them earned. He had 3 walks and a strikeout, and again was going on 3 days rest. But Mike Hargrove didn't want to chance it in the 2-0 hole with an offense that is sputtering. So Ossenmacher comes in to face Deion Sanders. Pokey Reese is off first, and there are 2 down. And a slow throw over.
Well, Reese has 5 stolen bases. He's only been caught 1 time. Paul Ossenmacher, a little slow to the plate.
Deion 0 for 3 tonight with a K, a ground out, and a pop-out to Trinidad Hubbard in left.
Well, there's a case of having too big a delivery because Pokey Reese started to lean toward second base when Ossenmacher came up with the right leg. A little quicker, would have had a pickoff. Now very deliberate, and this is the cat and mouse game. Ray Knight has probably, I would guess, given the sign. Go ahead and send him a challenge here. Even though Sandy Alomar has a good arm, if he doesn't get enough time to throw the runner out or at least give him a good chance, he won't have much of a chance.
Reese is quick, and the Reds are fast. As I mentioned it before, they lead the major leagues in stolen bases. 83 coming in tonight. Oliver just got caught lasting. Ossenmacher has yet to throw a ball to the plate. There's his first, and it's outside. So Deion is up 1-0.
And that's where speed might affect your control. Ossenmacher tried to hurry his delivery to the plate, came way outside with the pitch. The guy that can hurt you the most is the man at the plate with a bat in his hand. So you still have to concentrate on the hitter. Pay attention to the runner at first. Concentrate on the hitter.
Reese is off. The throw low. Alomar to second, and he is safe. Tough pitch to throw down, tough ball to handle for Omar Vizquel at second against a tough guy with speed.
Too big a jump by the base runner. You see the backhand scoop by Alomar. Not quite in time. I doubt that a good throw would have gotten the runner anyway. You see Reese in ahead of the throw.
So 2-0 to Deion, and Reese with a big lead off second. Ossenmacher gets one over for a strike.
You have to be careful in this situation. Don't let Deion pull the ball.
He does. Reese will score. Sanders with a very clutch single. Now, why do you say don't let him pull the ball? Obviously because he brings a run in, but was it the way the defense was positioned?
Well, number one, Manny Ramirez was fairly shallow in right field. The defense was playing Deion Sanders to hit the ball from right center around to left in the air. You don't want to give him the chance to pull the ball on the ground. And as you see, the pitch not far enough outside. Deion Sanders cannot reach that breaking ball when it's away. But when you leave it pretty much around the center of the plate, he's going to hit it somewhere. You give him a chance to pull it, he gets the base hit. Now watch him run.
Lenny Harris lifts one high. Tomei back. They were 3 down. Ossenmacher pitched 2 nights ago against his team. In the 3rd of an inning, he gave up a run. It was earned. He gives up a run here as well. They're in a hole now, 3-0. Back on a beautiful night for baseball here. Wednesday night baseball on ESPN at Jacobs Field as the Reds push another run across, and they go on top 3-0 now in the bottom of the 7th. Mention the fact that they have yet to have a complete game. Mike Gremlinger was congratulated by everybody after he came out through 6. In now, Stan Belinda, who has 38 appearances, second in the National League. It has been a very busy bullpen.
Well, Belinda, still a hard thrower, and he kind of goes against the grain. When he has that rider going, he can get away with pitching up. When he was with Pittsburgh a few years ago, they tried to get him to pitch down, sink the ball more, and he just wasn't as effective because he didn't have a real good moving fastball. In other words, not a lot of life to it. And they found out by throwing the ball up a little bit in the strike zone, cross-seaming the fastball, he would ride it. So he's doing a pretty good job. And obviously his job in here is to try and set things up for Jeff Shaw, the closer. But they have 9 outs to go. Actually 6 to get to Shaw.
Matt Williams will be the first man Belinda faces. And Belinda's been a few places. You mentioned Pittsburgh. He was in Kansas City for a while. Spent a couple of years in Boston with the Red Sox. And his most effective pitch has been that riser, that high fastball. Throws sort of a sidearm delivery, and that can confuse hitters.
Especially the righties. It's tough to pick the ball up. He hides it well. Now, if that wasn't a searching swing, yeah, I've never seen it. It just, again, when you struggle, and the way Matt Williams is going right now, it just seems as if he's searching the ball. When he's hitting well, he attacks the ball.
But you're a cleanup hitter at 13 for 95. You know, you talk about Ray Knight having decisions. Well, when do you either move him or sit him down for a game? He's been hurt, made contact there, but it's a foul ball, so he's down 0-2. And you can just see it on his face, you know, like, man, when am I going to break out of this?
Well, there's always been this term in baseball, don't let the game get next to you. And Matt Williams is one of the guys that lets it get so close to him that he is his own worst enemy. And just perhaps it would be a good idea to set him down for a few days.
He'll never tell you that the injury is affecting this, but people on the team have said so.
Yeah, he's a gamer. Matt Williams will grind it out for you. And it is kind of ironic. I mean, you go back quite a few years, there was another third baseman that played for the Indians that played injured very successfully for quite a while.
Williams to right. And Willie Green is there, and we'll have 1 down. You know, he grinds it out, but you don't want him to grind away the lead that you have in the Central either.
No.
It becomes counterproductive at some point.
Well, you don't want to hurt a player's confidence. And the thing about Matt Williams, I mean, it's not as if he's a second or third year player. This guy's been successful in the major leagues for a long time, so he's been through the grind. He knows what it's about. So let's say Mike Hargrove went to him and said, look, big guy, I'm just going to set you down, let you kind of get away from things, just relax. It's not as physical as it is mental for Williams.
The other thing, this is a different lineup with Justice out of it.
Oh, sure.
2 hits for the Indians is not reflective of what they have been able to do this season when healthy. Ramirez now up on the count 1-0. Fastball outside corner, 1-1. You mentioned Jeff Shaw. That's another example of injuries. I mean, Brantley is down and going to be out for a while. Shaw was his buddy in the bullpen, setting him up last year for the 44 saves, which led the league. So, and he has done the job, Jeff Shaw. But boy, when you have Shaw then Brantley versus just Shaw alone, it's a lot different.
Well, the toughest thing in the big leagues to do is to build a pitching staff. And you look at what has happened to Cincinnati, and you can actually go back a couple of years ago. Jose Rijo, who has been on again, off again for the last couple of years. And there's some talk that he will come back in August. And in fact, I was talking to Chris Welch, who does games for the Reds. He saw Rijo just recently and said he has never seen him in such good shape. He's not in shape to play, but his weight is down better than it's ever been.
The 2-2 pitch to Ramirez, and he goes deep to center field. Dion back on his horse to the deepest part of the park, and off the wall. Ramirez to second, and he'll stay there with a double. 405 feet away, that one nearly left as Ramirez turned around the Belinda pitch. Dion couldn't get there. The Indians with one down have a man on second. Take a look.
Well, Manny Ramirez is a great inside-out hitter, and you see that ball just kind of hangs a little bit there. He attacks, Ramirez does. Watch how he gets his bat out in front. Good extension, and Dion makes one heck of a try here. In fact, the ball comes back and hits Sanders, and that might have saved a 3-base hit. If Lenny Harris isn't over there to back up and that ball gets by Sanders, and by the way, or the angle we had on Harris, it looked like the ball would have kicked more back toward the infield. Triple, maybe more than that.
Well, they leave it up to the man who has been the most effective hitter on this lineup, along with Dave Justice, Sandy Alomar. A .366 average, 10 homers and 33 RBI. So far in this game, hasn't been able to do anything. Good pitch from Belinda. You're going to pitch to Sandy Alomar, you have to stay low and outside. He likes the ball low over the middle, low and inside, but low and outside, and you have a chance to get him. 1-1. That is a fair ball down the first baseline. Ramirez would score. Alomar to second. The hitting streak is intact, now at 19 games. Belinda knew the book on him. That time, Alomar stuck his bat out and was able to get it past Morris, who was shaded towards second.
Well, you don't like to tip your hat to the hitter, but in this case, you really have to, because Alomar just hit a pitcher's pitch. Look how he stays on it and reaches out, slaps the ball by Morris, who has no chance at all. And I don't know what it is about Alomar this year. He's got some kind of a doubles virus in his bat. He's gone through some kind of streak where it seems like 3/4 of the hits that he does get are doubles. That happens to be his 20th of the year.
Julio Franco up. They're not booing here. They're chanting "Whoo" for Julio Franco. Well, Ray Knight went to his bullpen. Remlinger had gotten the job done through 6, but now in the 7th, the Indians are starting to flex their muscles. Back-to-back doubles. Ramirez and Alomar. And now Franco up. Sandy Alomar, 19-game hitting streak.
You know how tough that is for a catcher? It's tough for anybody. For a catcher, it's more difficult, I think, because of the wear and tear. Alomar, you won't see him get infield hits. Sure, he might drop one over the infield every once in a while, but he won't leg out very many.
One of the Indians pointed out the fact that they think he's a lot more comfortable with guys like Lofton and Bell, who garnered so much of the attention, not here anymore. Sandy doesn't mind the attention and may play better with it on him, and obviously he has done that. Franco can't get to that. It's 1-2.
Well, there are players that will rise to the occasion or love the challenge of that situation. Others that perhaps have the limelight shine on them, they withdraw a little bit. They want to be left alone. Leave me alone, let me play, let me go unnoticed, because sometimes the more attention you draw, the more difficult it is, because those guys out there throwing the ball are bearing down a little bit more on you.
Franco goes down. Very good job pitching. Still a man at second. Now let's send it back to Gary Miller. Gary?
Karl, an update from County Stadium. The Cards hadn't scored since the opening inning when they got 3, but they get one back in the 5th. Off Jeff D'Amico, Ray Langford going the other way and knocking Gallego. 5-4 game now as the Brewers bat in the bottom of the 5th.
All right, Gary, thank you. And the Cardinals just a notch above the Reds in the standings in the Central. They began the night 3 games up on them, 2 back of Houston and Pittsburgh.
Scott Sullivan throwing in the bullpen. He pitched last night. Now, Belinda throws sidearm. This fella comes down a little bit lower. Yeah. Almost. Teak was a little bit more submarine. It's between submarine and sidearm. And the thing that amazes me, Karl, is I can see how a guy throws sidearm. But how they do it in between sidearm and submarine is that's what is hard for me to figure out.
Brian Giles pinch hitting now for Trinidad Hubbard. There was Franco frustrated as he went down swinging. And Julio has struck out twice in the game. So the lefty Brian Giles is up, and no doubt that was what the conversation was about, how to pitch him. Giles fouls one back, and it goes to 1-1.
Well, there's always been this feeling about Stan Belinda pitching against left-handed batters. And the thing is, when you throw sidearm like Belinda does, the hitter picks the ball up a little quicker. And because Belinda doesn't have that hard slider, he will throw a forkball that goes down, but his hard stuff basically is coming into the strike zone and into a left-handed hitter.
Little high, little outside. Ahead in the count is Brian Giles, 2-1 now. Giles is sort of trying to find himself. There was some thought that when they brought in Justice and Grissom, he would be moved, but he has stuck. John Hart and Mike Hargrove like to talk about Brian Giles as part of the future here in Cleveland. He's currently the present, facing a 2-2 count with 2 down. The Tribe down 2 with a man on second base. And Giles to center field, deep but not deep enough. Green is there, signals Sanders off, and the Indians are able to get 1 back-to-back doubles. Alomar has a 19-game hitting streak. As we go to the 8th, the Reds are up 3-1.
The Braves just broke through on Woody Williams and Paul Quantrill for 3 runs, but John Smoltz, after getting within a run, gives them back. Alex Gonzalez, 6th home run of the year, is having a huge week. It's 5-3. Blauser had a 2-run double. Sprague had his second error. The Braves are now down 2 again.
Gary, thank you. Uncharacteristic of John Smoltz. The most effective starter on that team has been Denny Nagel, but you talk about the young shortstops in the American League. They're all over the map. Nomar Garcia-Parra having a tremendous year in Boston. Of course, Jeter in New York, and a lot of people forget about Alex Gonzalez in Toronto, but he too has power and has about as much range as the other two. 3-1 now as we head to the 8th, and Ossenmacher delivers to Willie Green. Green got it all started for the Reds in the first with a home run. Something the Reds do very infrequently is hit long balls. Ossenmacher comes back, and it's 0-2.
Well, as you can see, Green does not agree. Twice said that is not a strike, very politely.
Not often the hitters do agree when it's a golf strike.
Well, I know one thing for sure. Paul Ossenmacher would like to have that pitch back he threw to Deion Sanders. He needed a couple of those little breaking balls. Look how far away Green is standing from the plate. He gives you the appearance that he can't reach the outside pitch, and I guess that's the case.
I think you're right. He couldn't reach it. And he is down on strikes as Ossenmacher retires the first he faces in this inning. How have we gotten to the 3-1 point? To this point, as we're in the 8th, a very good pitching duel. Starters were very effective. Green's home run in the first I mentioned. Remlinger went 6 and gave up no earned runs. 6 Ks, and the Cleveland 3, 4, 5 hitters have been scuffling. 1 for 9, 3 Ks, and you know that's a tribute to A, the pitching, and B, the fact that there is no justice, and Matt Williams is struggling. 1 ball, no strikes now to Eddie Taubensee. 1-1.
Well, it's fortunate that the Reds have the day off tomorrow. They're going to play a hypo game against one of their minor league ball clubs, but as Remlinger is the only lefty in the bullpen, and you assume that's where he will return to because they play the Cardinals over the weekend, he's going to need a day or 2 off.
That is it to right. Ramirez coming to the line. Does he have enough speed to get there? In the corner, he does. Actually, almost overran it, but he makes the play, and there are 2 down as Taubensee is retired.
That ball wasn't really driven by Taubensee. It looked like he hit it more on the end of the bat. So what happens in that case is the ball just hangs up there. And you see off the end, and when you do hit a baseball, it's like a golf ball, very similar to the spin or the rotation. Sometimes it'll hold up just a little bit longer. You know, when you hit a 9-iron, you think it's enough, and it just doesn't quite get there and goes in the water. Well, in this case, Danny Ramirez almost does overrun the ball.
I've hit many a 9-iron that I thought would get there that just didn't. I usually blame it on the wind.
Yeah. Should have hit an 8.
Same way that a batter never admits the ball is a strike. You never admit that it wasn't enough, club. Pendleton up on the count, 2-0. In the third, Terry singled to right, and he singles to left now in the eighth. You look at the Reds lineup, I mean, there is a mix, certainly of veterans, guys like Pendleton, Larkin when he's healthy, and there's a lot of young guys. It's just you don't have that sort of group of middle players who are effective enough to get you to the top of the standings. Right now, it doesn't seem that way.
No, and if everybody was healthy, this would be a completely different looking ball club.
Umpire John Hirschbeck. Second base, of course, with the Alomar incident behind him. That was his son Michael behind home plate. Now Morris stands in, 250 average, has gone deep once this season. And of course, there was that incident earlier in the season when they met for the first time, did the brother of Sandy, Robbie Alomar and Hirschbeck, and they ultimately came out and Robbie shook his hand to put that behind them. Umpires have been mired in controversy for a long time in baseball, and that was one of the uglier incidents. One to Morris.
You see a lot of things that do happen in baseball, good, bad, and that was one that'll probably stand out for quite a while, even though it is behind both people. There's a lot of people that will obviously remember what happened.
Morris fooled. Now 1-2. 3-1 games, 3-2 games. Indians, as far as close games go, have been one of the better teams. They have won many of their 1- and 2-run games. In 1-run games, they're best in the major leagues. And you would guess by the Reds' record, they're at the other end of the spectrum, and they are. Getting close to Jeff's shot time. To get through one more inning, and he has been virtually unhittable. Ossenmacher now goes to 3-2 after getting a hit on the count to Morris.
Well, Jim Thome will now move behind the runner at first base and try and close that big hole on the right side. Pendleton's going to be going anyway, so it doesn't do much good to try and hold the runner at the bag.
Strike three, he's out. Pendleton was on the move, but to no avail. So we will go to the bottom of the eighth. Indians trying to slice into a 2-run lead. It is 3-1 Reds. Vizquel, Grissom, and Seitzer to bat. 42,865 paid attendance here at Jacobs Field on a glorious night for baseball. The fans trying to get behind the Indians as they come to the plate. Omar Vizquel off his 5 RBI night last night. Single to right in the third. Fly to center in the sixth. Currently at 272. And he will be facing Belinda, who struggled a little bit last inning. We'll see if he settles down this inning. Pendleton in on the grass at third. Outside, held up, called strike. 0-2. And the 42,000 roar their approval. Boo. Foul tip into the mitt, and Omar goes down. Uninspired at bat.
Well, Stan Belinda really hit a good spot with that last pitch. Joe Oliver with the sign, the glove out on the corner, and the strikeout. In this game, pretty much more of a National League type game because the pitching has dominated, and the old term, good pitching stops good hitting, has been the case tonight. Actually, good pitching has stopped better hitting when it comes to matching up these two clubs.
You look at interleague play, and the numbers reflect that Grissom to short, and Reese throws him out. Numbers reflect the fact that the American League has had more success winning. They have also had more success offensively, but the numbers as far as batting averages go and DHs go, not that different.
No, and the majority of the players that I've talked to, especially the American League players, like the way that the game moves on. The pitcher gets the ball, he throws it. The time of games are shorter. I think the fans like it too. They get a good 2.5, 3 hour ball game, no more than that. Get their money's worth.
Yeah, each of the games, interleague, all of them, in either park, under 3 hours. Improved on the times of the regular season games by minutes in each case. Games have been moving fairly quickly this season, a little better than last. I think that was one of the things that they wanted to sort of address, was the speed of games. And there is the Indians' record against the National League. And down goes Seitzer. Stan Belinda. Perhaps the best pitched inning so far for a Reds pitcher. It is 3-1. We're heading to the ninth.
ESPN's Wednesday Night Baseball is brought to you by Best Buy. Just the store you've been shopping for.
At the Jake, not what Indians fans are used to. So far, the Cleveland offense held in check by Mike Remlinger, getting a spot start, was very effective. Stan Belinda out of the bullpen. And 42,000 have seen the Indians score 1 run on 4 hits. A new pitcher now in for Cleveland as Ossenmacher heads to the bench, and it's Paul Shuey, a workhorse, big boy, 22 games, ERA up there, but almost everybody's on the staff has an ERA up there.
Well, Shuey is a very hard thrower, good fastball, as you see on the first pitch to Oliver.
Oliver with a single in the first, then a walk. Single to left in the 7th, and then remember he was caught stealing. 1-1 count. Wherever they have played, they haven't had much success, but the Reds have won 2 of their last 3 on the road, 3 of their last 6. I mentioned the fact that they're in the middle of a 10-day, 9-game road trip. Shuey comes in and immediately gets behind, 3-1. And Oliver has his 3rd hit of the night. Cut off by Giles in left. Oliver makes the turn and will settle back in at first. So Joe Oliver, 3 hits on the night, and again, didn't play in Monday's game because he became daddy. Gavin Michael was born on Monday night, and Joe Oliver is knocking around some gifts for his new son. Well, 3 hits on the night.
He gets into a hitter's count, looks for the fastball, and gets it.
He's on the move again, and this time Branson laid one down and was unsuccessful as the ball goes foul.
A very difficult pitch to bunt is a high fastball. More often than not, you'll see hitters pop it up. I mentioned Paul Shuey has a very good fastball, and this would be a good time to use it.
There it is again, and he fouls another one off. So he's in a hole 0-2.
The reason that I say that about a fastball, it's up in the strike zone, and a lot of hitters find it difficult to get on top of the ball and bunt it down. A lot of times you'll stab at the ball. And a breaking pitch that is moving in a downward motion, it's a little easier to get on top of that ball. So you actually try to bunt the ball into the ground.
Missing high, 1-2. Well, Houston is trailing. St. Louis is trailing. Good news for Reds. Ball to second. Franco makes the play, and he gets him at first as the runner moves across. Some other interleague sites. Check the scoreboard. I mentioned Houston being down, but look at that. Chicago and Chicago, 3-0, the final score in a game that took 2 hours to play.
Well, there you go.
Wilson Alvarez and Terry Mulholland, the starters, they went the distance. And in Chicago, this season is averaging almost 3 hours a game.
There's another fellow that's somewhat snake-bit. Terry Mulholland has pitched very well for the Cubs, and he's like 1 or 2 games under 500 right now.
Talked about history as far as Subway Series and Freeway Series go. Well, in Chicago, White Sox have not had a great deal of success putting fans in the seats, but for this one, 44,204 show up. The biggest issue I think players have had, certainly in the National League because of the number of teams, has been these 2-day travels, get in, get out, and that is an issue, but I think that's something that they can address.
There's already been some talk about that, even though initially it was a turnaround next year, doing the same thing, same divisions. The teams that came to your ballpark this year, you turn it around, but because of I think the way the players have felt about those 2-game series, and not just the players, other people as well, I think that is trying they're trying to remedy the situation.
The 1-1. Missing 2-1. I mentioned the teams currently in the NL Central. Pittsburgh also losing today. If the Reds hang on and win this, they're going to be 4 games back. 4 games back in 11 games under 500. Both Central divisions, American and National, struggling this year. Reese fouled out of play, so it goes 2-2.
And you know, if Ray Knight wants to get his troops inspired a little bit, all he has to say is, put your hand over our 1-loss record. Just look in the loss column and see how many games out we are in our division. That's all he has to do. If the Reds get hot in a 2 or 3 week period, they could very well be in first place, as strange as it seems, and as bad a start as they got off to.
The crowd a little uneasy with the way Paul Shuey has entered the game. 3-2 now to Pokey Reese. Reese, of course, playing for Larkin. Ruptured his calf on Monday night, rounding first, heading into second for a double, so he's down for a while. Reese this time to right. Ramirez gives chase, but it goes out of play.
Well, the Indian pitchers tonight, O.J., Asamaker, and Shuey, for the most part, are pitching in a hitter's count. They're behind the majority of the time, and you get that bad feeling that just a pitch or 2 away from this game getting a little out of reach.
Reese, Williams to cut it off, then safe at first, and well, Pokey Reese has as much speed as anybody in the team, maybe with the exception of Deion Sanders. Good try by Matt Williams, but Reese barely got his bat on it. It was enough to get past Shuey, and that was enough to get him to first.
And you saw Joe Oliver kick the bag. He made a bad play there. When you see the third baseman coming across and going for a ball like this, as a base runner at second base, you have to be at third. And scoring Joe Oliver from second base right now is not automatic. He doesn't run all that well, and there are some pretty good arms in that Indian outfield.
We saw Vizquel sort of running over to cover third, but the fact is, the shortstop running with the runner, a tough throw from Tomei over to third. The factors are almost overwhelming for the defense, and you're right. Oliver should be on third. Instead, it's first and second with 1 down. Deion Sanders, a clutch hit his last time up as he singled to right center.
Well, as a base runner, you don't assume, but you do anticipate. And Joe Oliver simply got caught flat-footed, so he was no threat to move up when he should be on his toes and ready to run.
Shuey inside fastball sends Deion to his tiptoes, and it's 2-0. Deion hitting .317. And it's 3-0, and I would not be surprised if Mike Hargrove or Mark Wiley make a trip out, pending the result of Dion's at bat. But as you mentioned, getting behind in the count will kill you, especially to the leadoff man. Lenny Harris on deck. He'll hit next.
Well, they're starting to move a little bit in the Cleveland bullpen, but it could be a little too late, and this might be the reason that Mike Hargrove is going to the mound to stall. A trainer coming out as well, and this could be a tactic that allows that bullpen to hurry up and get ready, because Shuey has pitched himself into a real mess.
Well, Eric Cooper went out to take a look. John Hirschbeck in from second to take a look. Talked to Sandy Alomar.
Yeah, he's gone.
And Paul Shuey is going to leave. I think this is more the result of an injury than the effectiveness or lack thereof on the mound. But like Albie Lopez has thrown enough pitches, and he's going to be able to come on in and warm up and throw as many as he wants, due to the result that Shuey is leaving because of the injury. They have men on first and second to the Reds. They're up 3-1, and they are threatening to bring more across in the top of the ninth. Back with me. Wednesday Night Baseball continues from Jacob Field. The Reds are on top of the Indians 3-1. Don't forget Oakland, San Diego coming up at the conclusion of this one. And I mentioned the teams in the NL Central. Rook, and you look at what the teams have done, and it hasn't been very good. Houston at 34 and 36, all under 500. Houston, Pittsburgh, and St. Louis have either all lost or are losing. Houston is down 6-1 right now to the Royals, and St. Louis trailing the Brewers 7-4. Houston, Kansas City games in the 8th, and the St. Louis, Milwaukee game in the 7th.
Think about the start that the Cubs got off to this year, 0-14, and they're usually you'd expect, well, the season could be over, but with a long schedule and you grind it out, you still have a chance, as strange as it may seem. Just like Cincinnati, all you have to do in Chicago is just cover up the win-loss record and look at how many games out you are. I mean, baseball is such a funny game when you have a long schedule like this. That years ago, you might have had a much better winning percentage and be more games out of first place. So you get to a point where things can't get any worse, and the only thing they can do is get better. So that's the case for a lot of ball clubs, and they're still a long way to go.
Mentioned you take the Mets, who are in 4th place right now in the National League East at 37 and 31, and they're blowing away the Central. It's just a matter of where they are. You talk about that division, though, and you look as we look at Albie Lopez warming up. Pittsburgh has obviously been outstanding. You wonder how long they're going to be able to keep that up. But you look at St. Louis, and you're talking about a staff which is probably the best in that division. When healthy, the outfield is tremendous, and they have had some problems with injuries. But you know, there is not really one team, I think, with the exception of the Cardinals, who you can say, oh, there's the favorite.
Well, and again, Tony La Russa guaranteed a division title. I mean, he's kind of put it on his players, and the players joke about it, saying, well, we can't make him look bad. But they do have the Cardinals. Again, I mean, it's so redundant when you talk about all the clubs. The health factor. If I can get my players healthy, they've had so many guys out as well. Brian Jordan just activated. They have a good ball club. Houston, I think Larry Dierker's doing a marvelous job for a guy that's never managed anywhere. Larry Dierker has the type of mentality, I think, that can manage anywhere, and he's doing a great job for the Astros.
And the type of relationship that a manager needs to have, certainly in the 90s with his players. Sure. I mean, he has the support of the Bagwells and the Bigios, and that is as important as anything else as far as managing or coaching any sport goes in the 90s. Here's the situation, 3-0. Welcome to the game, Albie Lopez against Deion Sanders, and Deion is taking all the way, and Albie throws a strike.
And Mike Hargrove getting in a situation I'm sure he didn't want to make, because left-handed batters are hitting .357 against Lopez. Well, certainly not a percentage setup.
3-1 to Deion. He walks him outside. So the bases are now loaded for Lenny Harris.
Well, one thing about Lopez, he throws a moving fastball, a sinker, that does lend to a ground ball and a possible double play. No speed at third base, and a lot of times when you have no speed at third base, it is a good time to squeeze.
We'll see what happens with Lenny Harris at the plate when he fouls the first pitch off.
The reason I say squeeze, The ball has to be hit deep enough to the outfield to score Joe Oliver. A double play obviously takes you out of the inning. There's O.J. hoping that the Tribe can hold on and score some runs, and he can get off the hook.
The best arm in the Indians outfield is located in right field with Manny Ramirez. That ball up the middle and through. It plays Oliver. It brings in Reese. And the Indians bullpen fails to get the job done. Dion goes to third, and the Reds have a 5-1 lead, and the Boo Birds are out at the Jake.
Well, here's the pitch to fast. No, that was a breaking ball. Stayed up a little bit. A base hit by Harris up the middle. But these were the situations last year, the year before, especially in the last 3 years, that the middle relief of the Indians getting in a situation like this, they would absolutely come in and shut the door. Tonight, they haven't been able to do it.
Back up the middle, this could be two. Shuey to Vizquel, and they get Willie Green. Side retired, but the Indians will have a lot of work to do as they come to the plate in the bottom of the ninth, down 5-1. We'll see how big those two runs were as Tomei, Williams, and Ramirez get some. We are back at Jacobs Field, and the Indians find themselves in a 4-run hole, down 5-1 as the Reds scored 1 in the first, 1 in the second, 1 in the seventh, and 2 in the ninth. The Indians' lone run coming in the bottom of the 7th inning. There is a Jeff on the mound trying to close this one out. It is not Brantley, it is Jeff Shaw, Brantley's closest friend on the team. Brantley recently having surgery as they found a torn labrum. Shaw comes in, 35 appearances, 12 saves, and more than a strikeout per inning. The first man he will face is Jim Tomei.
And how fortunate the Reds are to have someone who can pick it up for Brantley like a Jeff Shaw. Hard thrower.
Mike Hargrove disappointed as the Indians in danger of losing their series to the Reds 2-1. Ray Knight pleased, and again, we mentioned the fact that should the Reds go on and hang on and win this, they're only going to be 4 games back in the National League Central. Every other team in their division has lost. Tomei to left. Back and over the head. The left fielder as it drops in for a double. So, Jim Tomei delivers, and that is not what Jeff Shaw wanted. And that ball, as you mentioned, some of them hang up there. That one just kept going.
Well, Tomei has the ability to drive the ball. Lenny Harris makes a good try at it, but can't run it down. One thing about the Indians, you have to go a hard 9 innings because they don't give up. And as I mentioned earlier, they have a quick strike type offense. There are still quite a few people in this ballpark. These fans have seen it happen so often here.
Well, this is interesting. Matt Williams being pinch hit for by Casey Candell. So I think the message is being sent towards Mr. Williams.
Well, Matt's about ready to snap. Maybe Mike Hargrove is doing Williams a favor. You replace a home run hitter with a line drive type hitter in Candell.
Candell now 1-1. I don't know if you can read somebody's mind, but there's Matt Williams, and obviously he wants to be in the game at this point, but he has been struggling.
Well, he's a stand-up guy, and that's what he's doing right now. Standing up, watching himself actually being pinch hit for. A lot of players, Carl, would be down in the dugout or runway, I should say, on the way to the clubhouse, not standing out here. So I think that shows a little bit of what Matt Williams is all about. It's a tough pill and situation for him to be in, but he's hanging.
Candell to short, Reese up with it. Tomei has to stay, throw on the mark, and Candell is retired. It also shows a little bit about what maybe Mike Hargrove is made up. I mean, you're talking about pinch hitting for one of the most effective home run hitters in all of baseball, struggling or not, and they are down 5-1.
Yeah, it's a tough call for the manager. Again, you try not to not destroy, that's not a word for Matt Williams, but you try not to hurt his confidence. And this is a little bit of a, I think, a hypodermic needle in him, somewhat. But he might need the rest. Let him sit it out a while.
Well, Manny Ramirez up, another home run hitter. He's got 9 this season, and he was swinging for the fences there. Shaw brings it in. Ray Knight said something that I found to be interesting. I mean, he talks about all these guys on his team, most of them very much in favor of his managing, but he says if he could clone one person, it would be Jeff Shaw.
Well, it says a lot about a guy who is not a everyday position player. Usually a manager will point to somebody who leads out on the field day to day. Shaw's not a guy that's out there all the time. So when he says that about a player, that is pretty meaningful.
Ramirez through the hole, and here comes Tomei with the second run of the game for the Indians, and they have cut the lead to 3. Manny Ramirez, a single to right. Uncharacteristic for Jeff Shaw to give up anything, but the balls that have been hit hard. Tomei's was a shot, and this was unplayable by the second baseman Benson.
Well, the thing Mike Remlinger did, he moved the ball around, was effective with the breaking ball. The Indians, for the most part, are a fastball-hitting ball club. So I think right now you're kind of geared into what they do best, and that's go after fastball. That doesn't mean they're automatically going to come back, but it might enhance their chances a little bit.
Sandy Alomar up, and he goes to right, and that will drop, and Ramirez goes to second, and the Indians have men on first and second, and the tying run comes to the plate in the form of Julio Franco. The Reds have nowhere to go.
Look at Ray Knight's eyes. See, that's an uncomfortable look in his eyes. He's seen it happen too many times. But just to go back what you just said, Jeff Shaw, here's the challenge. The momentum has shifted a little bit, and there is something to momentum, and it is an overused term at times, but there are some players or teams that kind of feel that once we get going, one guy hangs on to another fella's coattails, and they just kind of form a convoy and get rolling.
Franco, his last 2 at-bats, has struck out swinging both times. Shaw's first pitch right over the middle, and he is down 0-1. Franco walked in the 3rd, struck out in the 5th, struck out in the 7th. First and second. Indians down by 3. A home run ties it. Franco fouls one out of play to the right, and he is in an 0-2 hole. I don't think he's going to see a pitch that he wants to drive out. This is going to be a pitch that Jeff Shaw wants him to chase. And he has done it twice so far tonight. Franco to the right side. It could be 2. 1, 2. Game over, and the Indians' threat ends right there. So the Indians make it interesting, 5-2, but they aren't able to get any runs across. Excellent job by Mike Remlinger, the starter for the Reds. 5-2 the final. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For Jim Rooker, I'm Karl Ravech now. The A's and Padres, Dave Ryan, Kevin Kennedy.